The NPL Victoria Podcast is brought to you by Melville Bodyworks, located at 106 Melville Rd Brunswick West. For best-in-class panel beating and smash repairs and seamless support for insurance claims, call now on 8378 5555.
Forrester whips it in. It's a great ball in Bidwa! He's done it!
Alexander indirect all the way in! Incredible!
Mankiewicz battling for it.
Schroen! Marcus Schroen has done it again! And it's a good header away to save the day. Oh, wow! Welcome back, NPL!
Comes out with the ball. Berishevic to strike!
Oh, Charlie! Boom!
You could whack a frame on it. It was just art.
The big day is finally here. Our 2026 NPL Victoria Podcast season preview. Josh Parrish here in the Content Hype studio alongside Mr. Mark Ivkovic, sporting a fresh new haircut. I trust you got it for this podcast and not a rival network.
Yes, my loyalties are still here, boys.
Well, if you're joining us for the first time from our friends over at Suited and Booted, a big welcome to you. If you want to get into the weeds of NPL, into all of the nerdy detail, we are the sickos here on the podcast who talk about every game every week, and this is the place to be. And joining us remotely once again is Mr. Nick Dabano. How are you, Nick?
How are you guys? Ready to get stuck in for another season preview, the biggest pod of the year, as you said, Josh. This is where we will be held to account. People will be bookmarking this. They'll be getting the screen records. They'll be playing these in the change rooms come round one and throughout the year. So, you know, people don't forget when they listen to this episode. So we shall see how this one goes, because I'm sure a lot of receipts will be stashed away like George Costanza's wallet. As you saw, you could barely close it. There'll be some teams that will be like that this year.
And a man who has been flat track since the Australian Championship, calling all sorts of different football across the country, including the season opening weekend of NPL New South Wales. Holding up my crucifix and holy water. But Mr. Lachie Flanagan from north of the border. How are you, Lachie?
I'm good, thank you. I've been pretty busy this off-season, but I've been publicly quiet this off-season, mostly because I've been in mourning about the fact that the best NPL team in the country somehow conspired not to win the competition to win the best NPL team in the country. Of course, Heidelberg United. My boys last year, Heidelberg United, Johnny A's Warriors, didn't get it done. It was a tough off-season, but I'm ready to be hurt again.
And I take it you're tipping Green Gully top 2 this time around, or
let's save once bitten, twice shy, Josh. Let's save the Green Gully discussion for when we get to letter G in the alphabet.
Well, just a bit of housekeeping before we get going. We are recording this the Tuesday before the season starts. We have not received the final squads. So if there's anything our Fabrizio Romano of NPL Victoria has left out, you can blame Mark Ivkovic. If we've overlooked a signing or got something wrong, that's because we don't quite have access. The transfer deadline has not yet passed at time of recording. So there may be a few that get in under the wire. It's been a record-breaking off-season. How many transfers was it this time around?
Over 125. So,
well, we've held up the bat and kept going. So it could be a Bradman-esque score by the time that that transfer window finally slams shut. We're going to go through in alphabetical order, team by team, list some of the incomings and outgoings, give a general idea of our thoughts on each side. And then when we come to the crunch at the back end of the podcast, having had some time to stew over it, each of us will give our ladder prediction, our golden boot winner, and our gold medal prediction. All right, taking us away, first cab off the rank is the fascinating case of Avondale, who, as has been well documented, have gone through an off-season of turmoil following the departure of head coach Zoran Markovski to the Preston Lions, leaving the club in fairly curious circumstances and taking a few of the big names with him. Of course, the likes of Manny Agwek, Yusuf Ahmed, Kerr, Kalalu Kamara have all departed the club to pastures anew as well. But in comes a raft of new signings, which we were left to sort of piece together from cryptic silhouettes on the social channels from Avondale. But Marcus Fakranis, former Brisbane Roar player, Jacob Muir, who's played for Perth Glory in the A-League, the two Japanese boys who tore them apart in the Australian Championship for Moreton City, Tatsu Kojima and Seita Murai. Patrick Flotman comes in, the defender from RPL Leichhardt. Ayak Mo, I should say, from Sydney United. Jack Gibson, the goalkeeper from Sydney Olympic, to replace Tom Manos, who's gone to Oakleigh. Max Green, I have nightmares when I think about that name, what he did to Preston away from home in the Championship. Leon Alizart from Western Sydney Wanderers. Brandon Lundy and Dylan Jakupi, as well as Milos Marinkovic and Bruno Fornaroli, who are all Championship signings. And we believe Adam Zimmerino has come through the door from Brisbane Roar. Yep. After being snatched from the clutches of Oakleigh at the last possible moment. But the big story, boys, is still Mr. Bruno Fornaroli up top. If he can do what he did in the Championship, but now up to speed with his new side against NPL Victoria defences, watch out. Yeah, well, it's such a hard team to predict how they're going to go this season, Avondale. Like, you look at that list of outs, that's their whole squad virtually. You know, there's very limited players that have stayed at that squad that finished first last season and got knocked out in the prelim. And then the ins, we don't really know too much about them. Lachie will probably know a bit more than us because a lot of them have come from Sydney. But on paper, they look like not bad signings, but are they good enough to replace what's gone out the door? I don't know. I don't know until I see them play this week. But then when you start questioning, are they going to do okay? Are they not? Like you said, Bruno Fornaroli, that's not, you know, we see players come into the league, they played 10 games for Wellington and scored 3 goals. This is a genuine A-grader, superstar from the A-League coming in. You know, he's going to tear some defences apart. You've still got Christian Trojewski there, who's still one of the best midfielders in the league. Gite Towns is still there. So that link-up going forward, and Adam Zimmerino, he's got a very good A-League CV as well. So they've got a lot of attacking prowess, but that defence is what worries me. And Germano is the head coach. You know, it's drastically different to Zoran Markovski that was there. And we saw in the Championship that Germano struggled as a rookie coach. I thought, you know, got a lot of things wrong tactically in that competition, and it showed in their performances. And I felt like they underachieved in that tournament. Still had the basis of that squad. They didn't all start departing until post the Championship. And Aidan Bryce, that's probably the biggest loss for them. Losing your captain, probably one of, if not the best centre-back in the competition. There's just so much change at that club that you can't say how they're going to go. It's watch this space with Avondale, in my opinion. Nick, you were there on the sideline for some of Avondale's Championship games. Do you think Seita Murai and Kojima left the Reggio Calabria club having already signed their contracts, or was it completed at a later date?
It's impossible to tell, but I think that if they hadn't and they were on the radar beforehand, I think certainly it certainly wasn't long after they needed a little bit more proof in the pudding to get those deals over the line. As you were talking, Mark, I sort of was, you know, plotting out what a best 11 could be for Avondale, and I still think, despite the great, they are the great unknown because the core of what they had for so many years isn't there anymore. But on paper, the squad is still pretty strong. Like, they have a lot of players with a lot of experience at a very high level. You know, Jack Gibson, an A-League goalkeeper, you know, Patrick Flotman, A-League defender, Jacob Muir, Marcus Fakranis didn't obviously play much at all for Brisbane Roar, but still comes in with enormous pedigree, and Emlyn Wellsmore still there from the team gone past. You've still got that the two of the triple T's in Towns and Trojewski, and then that attack with Murai, Kojima, Fornaroli, Valentini, and if Zimmerino's in the door as well, still very strong. Like, they've still got a lot of players. So if Shimano can get the best out of this group, I don't think there's any reason to think that they can't play finals this year and be a team that pushes right up there again for silverware and maybe a run into finals. Because I still think Bruno Fornaroli could still, at the ripe old age of 38, could still easily take this league by the scruff of the neck and have an amazing campaign. I think in the Championship we saw him play a lot of minutes that, you know, after a whole season of playing in the A-League and in tougher conditions, I think towards the end of the the tournament, you could see that he was starting to labour a little bit. But I think now with a bit of time off, a bit of rest, and an opportunity to link up with his teammates a little bit more, I'm really excited to see what Bruno can do, because he's that sort of player that can create something out of nothing. We've seen it for so long in the A-League. I think that there is every reason to suggest he probably could still do a job in the A-League right now, because he was still playing quite a high level when he left Melbourne Victory and was playing awesome in the championship. So I think that it's going to be fascinating to see how they come out of the gates in the first few weeks. Because, again, as much as it is the great unknown, the team on paper, the squad on paper, is still very, very strong. And I think it's still a top 6 team in this competition. So very fascinated to see how these first few weeks go, and then we can kind of reassess once we see them out on the green stuff.
Lachie, sorry to out you as a Melbourne Heart supporter of years gone by, but is it incredibly strange for you to see Avondale roll out with Germano as coach, Fornaroli up top? Like, surely we should be re-signing Gol Mabratu at this point and getting the band back together. What's Fernando Brandan doing these days?
This is the real reason I've been in mourning this off-season, is because my dream upon dream, which is to commentate Bruno Fornaroli, my childhood hero, which was realised in the championship in a 0-0 draw, by the way, has finally arrived in the league I've been covering for my entire adult life when I'm here. It wound me up. Not enough to be maybe as negative as other people have been, but this feels like a classic high ceiling, low floor potential season for Avondale. Like, for me, the ceiling is maybe sneaking into the top 4, maybe top 3. That's the ceiling if everything goes well. The floor is 10th. That's the nature of the amount of changeover. Look, a lot of the signings on the face of it are pretty good. I mean, Murai, it is easy to look at certain players and go, well, they're coming to NPL Victoria. That's considered the best NPL league. How are they going to fare? But Murai and Kojima played against some of the best NPL teams in the country and stood out. So right there for me is a tick on signing 1, tick on signing 2. The other thing that's great about Kojima is that versatility. He can play in midfield, also in left back. The Sydney signings are interesting because it's not very common that you actually see many transfers from New South Wales NPL to Victoria, and Avondale have made 3. Mo will be an interesting one. He, like the whole team, high ceiling, low floor. Jack Gibson is a good, reliable goalkeeper. Is he an improvement on Tom Manos? I don't know. Patrick Flotman has that A-League experience like you mentioned, Nick, and it is notable that this squad has so many players with A-League experience in it, and that will help them. But Flotman wasn't playing at all for Apia, basically, in the championship right until the end. And Franco Parisi was preferring to play Michael Kuda out of position for the vast majority of the championship in that central defence. So what sort of condition is he in? How is he going to make the grade? That will be fascinating. But at the end of the day, it is easy to look at this side purely through the lens of comparing it to what came before, which has been perennially one of the strongest teams in the NPL. And if you look at that, maybe you're thinking, yeah, okay, there's a downgrade, there's a down year coming. But if you look at it compared to what is around it, the other teams in the league, I'm maybe not as panicked now looking at the rest of what else has come in the door at other clubs than I would be. They still have a player who's immediately going to be one of the best strikers in the league. They have heaps of players with A-League experience. I still have them, I reckon, sneaking into finals on the basis of what they've got, even if there are some teething issues that will come out along the way.
I mean, I'm in lockstep with you, Lachie. At first, I panicked over, the departures and thinking, they're going to miss the 6. I've completely turned around. I think this squad's pretty well built. Even if we have some doubts over Germano as a rookie head coach, we know that there's a mad Russian flying a drone over the Reggio Club, rear club, and don't mess with him. Maxi Gajdowski is a pretty sharp tactician and has been a head coach in this competition for a short period. So I think he's got able support staff around him. And I do think there's plenty of quality still in the squad. I know I was particularly worried about the defence because of the departures of Bryce and Kamara. But on paper, Muir and Fakranis are 2 really good signings, and they won't have to rely on the health of Matt Reid. He'll be a bonus when he can play. They've still got probably the best striker in the competition, or at least the striker with the best CV in Bruno Fornaroli, and they've still got one of the best creative midfielders in Christian Trajewski. I think this team's going to be fine. They're not going to win the championship, I would say that. Maybe they're a chance in finals, but they're not going to win the premiership. But I think they're going to comfortably make finals, Lachie.
And if I'm not mistaken, Bruno, according to a few people I spoke to during the tournament, was playing either with or through an injury at that time. So if he was playing through an injury during the championship and still scored, 4 or 5 goals, I reckon he's going to be okay when he comes into this league, quite possibly.
Lachie, he's 38 million years old. He's going to be playing with an injury for most of the season, I would say.
Yeah, okay, but he is one of those players where I don't think age matters as much as it does with other players because of the skills, the capabilities he's got. He's never been a striker who's relied on lightning pace or zipping in behind the lines. He's just been a lethal, creative, intelligent finisher and footballer. So long as the team is built around him to do the running work for him, to create supply for his demand, then they should be fine because he'll score 20, 25 goals doing that.
Just on that defence, though, they have had some heavy defeats in the preseason. They lost 5-0 to Bentleigh Lions, copped a few against North Sunshine as well. So
we have a separate VPL 1 podcast. We don't need to mention Bentleigh. Let's leave them out for the sake.
There's always time to talk about Bentleigh. What do you mean, Lachie?
I forgot, Lachie. I've opened up a can of worms now.
I think Nick's desk just shifted in front of him.
Season form has been pretty horrible by all reports, so that's where my concerns come from. How long is it going to take for this team to gel? And so many signings, so many interstate signings. We've seen in the past, you sign 2 or 3, maybe 1 out of those 3 settle quickly and adapt to the league, and the other 2 take a bit of time to get going. This is 10 plus, from interstate.
I think they'll start slow because of the changeover. But they begin their campaign against a team that might start even slower because of their off-season commitments.
And don't forget as well, it's not like Avondale are the only team to have made a shed load of signings. You just told us that a billion transfers have happened this NPL Victoria off-season. You've never tweeted more in your life.
Yeah, and half of them were Avondale.
Well, yeah. But
ins and outs. There's about 35 combined.
But most clubs have made at least double-digit signings this off-season. Like, there is going to be adjustment and settling periods potentially across the board. Now, we don't know the timing of when all of these players have come in and started training together, and that may be a differentializer. But everyone's going to be experiencing that, and perhaps that might mean that it equals out a little bit. It becomes less of a factor than we think that it might.
All right, I think we should press on. Otherwise, we're going to be here all night doing this preview pod. But Avondale, a fascinating storyline this season, to say the least. Altona Magic, our next cab off the rank in alphabetical order. A team doesn't get talked about nearly as much, but they've had a busy off-season of incomings and outgoings as well. Christian Rossi has left the club and gone to Dinamo. Anthony Frangi to Bentleigh Greens. Bilal Habib to Green Gully via South Melbourne, which is a really big loss for them. Dejan Bakadanakoski has left. Taufik Olamawewe has gone up the road to Green Gully, which I think leaves a massive hole in that defence that was among the better defences in the competition last season and was the reason that they stayed up. And they've also lost Ilya Shalamanov-Trenkov, who's gone to South Melbourne as their sort of overseas rotation goalkeeper, shall we say. Saad Mukacha has departed back to Europe. In comes Brandon Kumineo, who signs from Green Gully. We've seen him in the league with Northcote in the second division as well. Owen McCloskey from Port Melbourne. Brian Sutomo from Gold Coast United. I can't claim to know him. John Mabok from Werribee City, former Melbourne Knight Junior.
Yep.
Jeffrey Leno, who's played for a bunch of different clubs, I think most recently Northcote. Josh Heaton, the big Englishman who played at Green Gully at the back end of the campaign after signing, I believe, from State League 1. Liram Elmazi comes back from Dandenong Thunder. Brandon Lawton from Preston Lions. And Eman Sordo, not sure on the pronunciation. I can tell you he's really, really, really good. Judged judging on what we saw from him at the back end of the VPL1 campaign for North Sunshine, he was an absolute machine. So he's probably the marquee acquisition to replace the creativity and attacking firepower of Bilal Habib and Anthony Frangi. But the cupboard is pretty bare at the Magic. I'll start with you, Lachie. Do you think that Goran Lazanovski can work yet another miracle and be more than the sum of the parts that he's dealt and keep this team up or not?
So I used the phrase once bitten, twice shy before when you mentioned Green Gully. Altona is one of the teams I've pored over and thought about the most recently going into this podcast, which sounds surprising, I know. Because I almost have a reverse once bitten, twice shy effect with them, which is that I'm pretty sure for the last 2 years running, I have predicted them to be like almost certainties to go down. And on both occasions, they have found a way to survive and survive comfortably in some of those cases. I just think that Loz has won me over. And it's really disconcerting because my brain looks at the list of ins, sees the amount of players who are, with the greatest of respect, coming from lower divisions or have played in this particular competition before and not exactly set the world alight. Like, I liked John Mabok when I saw him at the Knights, but there are a reason that I liked Joffrey Lino when he played in NPL Victoria as well. But there are contextual circumstances as to why these players drop down division. Sometimes that can be non-football, but it is hard not to look at the list and go, gee, this is a team that does feel like it could get relegated. But I've been wrong about Loza twice before, very wrong. He has proven himself to be a pretty good maximizer, I would say, of the talent he's got at his disposal. There's been a lot of changeover. Yeah, key players are gone. But this is also the same guy who turned up in very last-minute.com circumstances to Altona a couple of seasons ago with 3 players signed at his first team meeting when Scott Miller left the club at the sort of 11th hour on the eve of that season and managed to steer them to safety. So if there is a coach I have faith in to know what it takes to win that battle, I'm starting to feel like maybe it's Loza.
Nick?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, Lachie. My only concern is I guess my biggest question about Altona is where are the goals going to come from this season as well? I mean, Bourgeois 2 years ago, Lachie, they had him in there and he was banging in the goals regularly to keep them.
Yeah, but this is my whole point, Nick. This is my whole point.
No. Well, if you let me get to it, I'll get to the point. What I was saying is, what I was saying is that, they had Bourgeois in years gone by, 2 years ago. They had Bilal Habib and Anthony Frangi and Christos Theodore a couple of last season who was scoring goals. I'm just fascinated to see who is going to take the mantle as their main number 9 this season. Who's going to be the guy they're going to turn to? It's going to be his biggest feat yet to keep this team up. Even if, 2 years ago was pretty darn impressive, as you mentioned, Lachie. But I think just in terms of on paper, the team isn't as strong as years gone by. But yeah, I think in just how competitive this season is, 3 teams going down, the sheer competition of the teams around them and how tight things are, they're going to have to bank a lot of those 6-pointers and get points on the board early. But I think if Goran Lazanovski can pull this off, not just keep them up, but continue to stabilise Altona as an NPL Victoria a team that is, retaining their status for quite some time now, beyond, I guess, what everyone else's wildest expectations were. And look, he still managed to keep Alexander Gust and Kawaguchi as well, 2 very, very solid players from last season. I'm excited to see Sordo in the top flight. I think he's going to be an absolute baller. But yeah, if he can pull this off and keep them up, I think he'll be in Coach of the Year contention and will be someone that, we really should be putting put some more respect on Loz's name, because I think he's done a darn good job with Altona over the last 2 years.
I hear you, Nick. I do. And in many respects, I agree. Because like I said, what I read on the page and what my brain thinks are two different things. But I just have this feeling that I can't shake that in a year's time, we will be doing the 2027 preview and we'll be looking at Altona Magic and going, gee, they narrowly survived last year. Where are the goals going to come from?
Well,
I can't work it out. He can't keep getting away with it, but he does get away with it.
Well, this is the thing, Lachie. I mean, as Josh mentioned off the top, like, there's every chance that by the time this podcast has been released, they've signed their number 9, their deadline day signing that's come in and is going to bang in, 10 plus goals this season and be the difference between promotion and relegation. But, as we've spoken about, if there is a coach who can do it, it's him, because he's so good at getting the best out of what he has. So, again, they're going to be, just like I think every team in this league, but particularly in that relegation battle, they're going to be a team that I think we're going to be keeping a nice eye on this season, seeing how they go about it week in, week out.
Well, I'm just hastily checking their Instagram to see if there are any last-minute signings being announced, and their last post is volunteers wanted, so that doesn't augur well.
I think what Lachie was the point he was trying to make was, like Bull Jawach, we didn't have a clue who he was when he signed for Altona. He came from New South Wales, so no one really knew if he was good or not, and he ended up being one of the best strikers in the league.
I think Lachie knew, but that was because he had a sicko job editing NPL highlights packages at the time. So.
But he was a no-name when he came,
yeah,
and Loza made him into a goal machine. Well, Frangé didn't have the greatest season in the world last year. The whole year they struggled to score goals. The amount of 0-0 draws that Altona had, was 3 in a row at one point that they had 0-0 draws. That's the concern, is they haven't really improved in the attacking wise, and defensively they've lost some key personnel. Rossi is a huge loss. He was a good goalkeeper for them, was their captain, and Oliver Wayway as well was super impressive last season. So,
and Shalamanov-Trenkov played a chunk of games as well, but that was probably, in terms of how even their two goalkeepers were, that was probably the best 1-2 punch in the league. And yeah, they don't have that reliability now. Kumaneo, haven't seen much of him in the top flight, but his Gully debut was a complete disaster, and I just didn't think he was convincing.
No, and I don't think he was either. And Loza clearly set that team up to be defensive and be hard to beat, so interesting to see if he goes down that path again. But I agree with Nick. If they manage to stay up, he's coach of the year, in my opinion, because on paper it's the poorest squad. And out of all of the articles that have come out from Ben Higgins over the past couple of weeks with his season previews, Loz is the only one that's openly admitted that this team is, in a battle for survival. Everyone else is a little bit delusional about their situations, where I think some other teams are going to struggle as well. Loz has openly admitted that, it's not the greatest squad, and he'll do his best to stay up.
Is he going to be better than 3 other teams? I don't see it this year. Because last year you had an academy team. We've got one of those, of course. You had Port Melbourne with clearly the worst squad in the league, and we knew that from day one. We all predicted them to go down. They were a consensus pick. We knew they were out of money, basically. And then you had the Melbourne Knights implosion. So they need 2 implosions, basically, to stay up. Because maybe Melbourne City academy teams probably won't be the strongest, and then you need 2 sides to absolutely go down the tubes.
I don't know. I reckon there's some ticking time bombs sitting out there, Josh. We're still 2 teams in. We're only 2 teams in.
We'll get there. Let's move on to Bentleigh Greens. And George Katsakis has gone hog wild in the transfer market, bringing in player after player after player. And there's some impressive signings amongst this lot. Anthony Frangé from Altona Magic, Dennis Menelau, Alex Hurd, Jawad Rezai, Maki Petratos, who's a proven NPL operator, Kalalu Kamara, Dion Nicolaides, Manimo Achol comes in, the South Sudanese international, Mark Latsis. There's a lot of names through the door and a couple of experienced players. And Katsakis stalwarts, well, he hasn't really been sentimental about it. Adrian Zara's left. He's gone to Essendon Royal. Sean Ellis has just been announced for Brunswick Juventus, and we salute the top flight career of the flame-haired Scot. What do you make of the squad that George Katsakis has assembled, Ivka?
Well, we've got some breaking Here We Go news late this afternoon with their squad as well. Sean Rosvidzo, who I think was a great signing for Bentleigh. I thought he was super impressive last year for St Albans when he came across from Eastern Lions. We spoke about him a number of times on the pod last year. My mail is that late before the deadline, just before the deadline closed, is that they released him and they have brought in Mo Aidara from Heidelberg. So interesting that they let Razvidzo go, but Aidara is a big signing, a lot of experience. So we know Katsakis likes experienced players in his sides.
That's completely absurd. I'm sorry. I don't agree. If that's the decision they've made, it's Aidara in, Razvidzo out. Razvidzo is a young player with his best football ahead of him. He's a difference maker. He's a game winner. And a 36, 37-year-old Mo Aidara, as much as I love him as a footballer, he's just going to plug holes in midfield and win tackles. And, he's a pretty... I would take the guy who can score goals and win your games.
Think about the team we're talking about, who they're coached by and how they play. That's probably his style of player. Katz isn't really a free-flowing style coach, but Razvidzo, that's a big gamble, like you said, to do that, because highly talented, would have added a lot to their attacking third. I think attackingly they are a bit weak. They don't really have heavy hitters up there. Dennis Menelau, VPL 1, Frangie, hot and cold. We've seen every club he's played for, the Knights, Dandenong Thunder, Altona. He has moments of brilliance and a lot of moments of stupidity. So big risk.
He's good every 3 or 4 games.
Yeah. So,
and he's really good in ththose games.
Yeah.
But he just never puts it together. And you sort of big fish, small pond syndrome with him as well.
I think defensively they'll be fine. They've got Ahmed Talib there. Scott Hillier as well, former Avondale defender who played at Bentleigh last season.
Kamara is an unbelievable signing.
Kamara is probably the standout signing. So defensively they'll be really good, especially again with the way Katz plays his football. I think they'll be okay. I think they're a slight finals contender just because Katsakis has so much experience in this league and he knows what it takes. And he's done it with Heidelberg before. Heidelberg were in State 1 or whatever it was a fair few years ago, got promoted with them and finished third with Heidelberg in his first year of promotion with them. So I think with Katsakis' experience, he's got Con Tangalakis with him as well as his assistant, 2 really experienced guys in Victorian football. They'll be okay. I don't think they'll be anywhere near relegation trouble, and they'll be mid-table pushing for a final spot.
Nick, I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see what that front 3 or front 4, whatever it is that Bentleigh go with, is going to look like this season. I mean, they've signed Patrick Hogan and Alan Jerez late in the window as well. And as you mentioned, Maki Petrados, who'll probably occupy something just in behind the number 9. Jawad Razai. So they've got a lot of wingers, but no one that has had that sort of high volume season where they've, put together massive numbers in NPL Victoria. A lot of guys that have experience, which I think will serve them well, but they don't have, I think, when you look at the teams around them who have that X factor up front, that number 9 who can, bang in 15 goals in a season. We haven't seen it yet in NPL Victoria. I'm as high as anyone on Dennis Menelau, and I'm excited to see what he can do in NPL Victoria. He's a great finisher. He's got the physique. He's a tall sort of number 9. But this is parts unknown for Dennis, so he's testing himself at a much higher level. But I think if he can show bits of that immense promise, he could be a very handy striker for Bentleigh this season. But behind the ball, I think is going to be their biggest strength, as you mentioned, Mark. When you've got Kalu Kamara, particularly marshalling that defence, that's going to go a long way for them alongside Scott Hillier. For me, though, I still think they're going to be mid-table. I think at best case scenario, they sneak into the top 6. That's just the way I see it based on the squad they've assembled. But I think just the lack of firepower up front beyond a couple of the players they have there, I just have a few question marks. But I think they're going to be very, very hard to beat. They're going to be very disciplined. They're going to be physical. They're going to be everything that we know a George Katsakis side to be. I mean, they got promoted off the back of being that hard team to break down, the team that grinded out results. They got the job done, and I think we'll probably see more of that this season. But I think they might fall into that sort of area where they are in that mid-table and might just fall short at the end of the day. So I think they're going to push for finals, but more likely, I think, if I had to pick, I think they might just miss out.
Lachie, do you want to jump in?
I do want to jump in, and I want to jump in to Zag. I think you three have all had your head turned by the shiny new toy on the NPL Victoria market, that you are overlooking one of the best midfielders of recent years in NPL Victoria. If Scott Pendlebury was cut by Collingwood at 36, would you have gone, oh, nah, Pendles is done, he's 36, 36 tax? No, he still fronts up and he plays every game. Mohamed Aidara played almost every game in 2024, 26 of 27. He played pretty much every game of the NPL Victoria regular season. Full 90s, by the way, like every minute. Yeah, okay, he only played 3 games in the championship. He did go a bit of resting here. But this guy is a beast, and he's not just a ball winner. He's a ball retainer. He's a creative passer. Like, John Anastasiadis loves this guy. He loves him. And if Johnny A loves this guy, there's got to be something special about him. So I think that's a great idea. You take the guy who plays week in, week out as an 8 out of 10 performer in NPL Victoria over the guy who played 7 games and looked impressive. That's just me. Nothing against Rizvidzo, but I think Aidara is an absolute gun. And if the Scott Pendlebury of NPL Victoria is on the market, you take Pendles. Even if he's 36, you still take him. On Bentleigh at large, I am pleased to see that they have learned from the stupidity of their last year in the top flight, where they were just playing silly buggers in the off-season. I think there's a lot of good signings here, frankly. Mark Latsis is a player that I really like. A Chol could be a really interesting signing. Jawad Rezai is an interesting one. He barely played at Marconi last season. He's had flashes of good stuff when he has had his stints in Victoria. Can he capture it consistently? I don't know. Menelau's a particularly hard worker, probably gets a deserved chance to show what he can do in the top flight. Kamara, you've mentioned. Maki Petradas, I thought, was really good in a crap Sutherland team last year. He stood out. So he will provide some goal-scoring firepower, and I thought, even though he's ended the bring your brother along with you circumstance of Costa and Maki, they've split the band up this year, I still think he'll be pretty serviceable. And yeah, I'm not as high as I've seen quite a lot of people tip Bentleigh to sneak into finals. I'm not sure I'm going to be that generous, but I'm not going to go against the proven track record of George Katsakis. I've got them comfortably safe, 8th or 9th.
Just a couple of points on what Lachie said. Johnny A loves Mohamed Aidara that much, he released him. And secondly, to further enhance my point about...
Well, he must suck. He got released from the best team in the country outside of the A-League. What a crap player he is. He's such a bad player that he played every game until his 36-year-old body
We never said he was bad, Lachie. I just said I'd pick Rizvidzo over him at this point.
And I disagree. I disagree.
If it's one of the two, I'd rather have both. But.
And to further enhance our concerns about Bentleigh's attack and their superb defensive record, last year they only conceded 20 goals in VPL1.
It was unbelievable in that league.
And they only scored 45 goals, which was heavily one of the lowest scoring teams, especially in that top 4 rankings.
Can you give me Georgie's goals for and against in comparison?
77 for Georgie's, 35 against. So, and that's the team that finished second. So they got promoted with being one of the lowest scorers. So obviously we know what's going to happen going into this season because they haven't really addressed that issue. They're going to be a low-scoring team, but they're going to be bloody hard to score against.
Can't wait for Altona Magic versus Bentleigh Greens at Paisley Park. Lachie?
I credit it is a different league, and the standard of defence is higher in this competition. But only one team last year, below 8th, scored more than 40 goals last year. They don't need to be necessarily reinvented. Like, yeah, I agree that that's a weak point, but I don't think they necessarily need to reinvent the wheel. If the core underpinning foundations are solid, in a transitional league like NPL Victoria is, if you can defend, that means you can counterattack. If you can absorb pressure and possession, that means you can break. And if you can do that in this league, you're usually going to score enough goals to get you by.
All right, well, let's push on then to Caroline Springs. George Cross back in the top flight after a long absence, and it's terrific to have one of the grand old names of Victorian football in amongst the elite, as they should be. I've looked at their list of incomings, and it's lengthy. I wouldn't say it's particularly impressive. I think there's a lot of middling tier players on this list. Lucas Burns, I really like. I think he could be a real difference maker for them. Nick Dibb, when he played for Port Melbourne, elevated them last season. It was just because he missed so many games due to injury that they really struggled without him in midfield. Maker, the same. Leo Marzis, the player that Melbourne Knights got that meaty transfer fee for, comes back from Sutherland Sharks, I assume, on a free. Johnny Apostolopoulos, the Heidelberg's Mr. Fix-It man, gets maybe a greater role at Georgie's this season. Aidan Mustardanagic has been playing with Pascoe Vale and actually got relegated to State League 1 last season. I have seen him before and thought he was pretty eye-catching on the left-hand side, but at this level, he's pretty unproven. Yagub Mustafa comes across from Dandenong City. He scored in the cup final. He's a player of moments, and those moments can be pretty special. Seb Hernando from FC Bentleigh Lions. He's bounced around a bunch of different clubs. So too Justin Spiteri, a nice Maltese boy over to Georgie's, which is good to see. But the two signings that I might have my eyebrows raised almost to my hairline, two of the Melbourne Victory goalkeepers who badly struggled in the top flight last season in Christian Siciliano and Casper Fonsboel. Ivka, are they going to announce Jonas Sultan on deadline day to complete the unholy trinity?
No, Sultan went to Western United.
Yeah. Well, let's see if deadline day has some more surprises for them.
They're two very concerning signings. You know, we spoke about Melbourne Victory's issues last year, and so you know what to do against George Cross this season is just put balls into the 6-yard box and you're pretty much guaranteed to score a goal. I don't know about those signings for Georgie's. I've got concerns over it. There are a lot of okay squad players that they've signed. You know, a lot of guys that just filled up a spot on a roster for good teams. You know, like they've signed from good clubs, but they weren't regulars in those teams, so they haven't played a lot of football in the past 12 months. The signings that they've made, I don't know. I don't know if it's enough to top up a squad that got promoted. You know, we just spoke about Bentleigh Kamara. That's an A-grade signing. There's not an A-grade signing there.
There's maybe a couple of B pluses, maybe.
Yeah, and that's how I categorise signings at times. You know, when I've been in recruitment before, you've got A, B, C style signings. I don't see any A's in that squad, not many B's, a lot of C's. So I've got concerns over them, and it's not easy to come up. We know that. You know, Georges haven't been up in this league for a long time. They're going to be up against it. I've got concerns. I think it does have smells of being a team that can get relegated.
Well, the good news is for them, Josh Whiteley's been a regular source of goals for them. He's come up with them, and Luke Lofts gets his shot at the top division. And if you haven't experienced Luke Lofts on a football pitch before, he's a sight to behold. A technical marvel, player who can just put the perfect weight on through balls, and of course his free kicks are second to none, I would say, in this state, really. He hits the mark with so many of them. So he's a devastating attacking player. It'll be interesting to see how he goes against top flight defences, but he's been able to, you know, impact games, any club he's played for. You know, Bulleen, he was outstanding. Georgie's, he helped them get promoted and was one of the best players in the competition. A couple of notable outgoings. Our thoughts are with Ricky Foster-Hosawai after his terrible head collision at the back end of last season led to his retirement. What a career, what a great footballer in VPL 1. We always love watching him tuck away goals, and we wish him the best with what's to come. And I believe Michael Sutsides has left. He was a player for Melbourne City. You might remember in the top division when he wasn't getting sent off. He was really good. Had a few disciplinary issues, but was a really, really good defender aside from the occasional red card. Lachie, Nick, who wants to jump in here on Georgie's? Nick?
I think we've got our box office team in the league, guys. I think we have the team that are going to play a lot of fun games. Fun for us as us in the media, but fun for those as well. If you're looking for a team, your league pass team, as Bill Simmons would call it, this is the team. They might not be a finals team this year, but they're going to entertain because they have a lot of guys out there, and you mentioned them, Josh, Luke Lofts and Josh Whiteley, who I think are going to be very, very fun to watch in this league. I'm excited to see Luke Lofts test himself in the top tier. I think it's well overdue. I think he's one of the most technical players that we've seen, not just in VPL1, but in NPL Victoria. You know, Joshua Whiteley is just a rocket. He bundles of energy. He's someone who's going to provide a lot going forward for them. Justin Spiteri is low-key a pretty good signing for them, I think, because he was really good for Bulleen last season at right back. He's super quick. He's someone who's going to get forward and create a lot of havoc going forward. So I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. Morgan Filer is someone I'm looking forward to seeing play in the top tier. He's good for a goal from defence. They're going to be a team that will get stuck in. We know that they don't take a backward step. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this team goes out on the park this year. There's a lot of guys out there that are just they're low-key ballers. You know, what could Lucas Burns do for them this season? Seb Hernando, he didn't play for Bulleen last year. He was a late departure, but what could he do after, a year away from Victoria? He's someone who really, really impressed me in the years gone by when he got regular opportunity. And Aidan Musa-Danagic, look, I know he hasn't played the top tier for quite some time, even the second tier for quite some time. He's another one. He's a pocket rocket. He's someone who's one of the quickest players that we have seen in NPL Victoria. So I think in Victorian football. So I think in transition particularly, they could be quite devastating when you've got those names there in that attack and in that team. I think they're going to be a lot of fun. I am saying this right now. They are the box office team. They are going to be just a lot of fun. They're going to score a lot of goals. They might ship a lot of goals, but I think you're going to want to tune in and watch them week in and week out. I'm really excited to see these guys back in the top flight. And I think Saturday nights out at City Vista, will be a nice little spectacle. I think they'll get some great turnouts there as well. And it's great to have a powerhouse of Victorian football back in the top flight. And the football, I think, is going to deliver.
And they've got a proper media tower as well, so they're going to be some good streams to watch, which is great to see George Cross investing a little bit in that department. Lachie?
Yeah, I am very... I'll say everything I'm about to say with the caveat that I am very pleased to see them back, and it is good to see ambitious clubs who have fallen on hard times be able to wrench themselves back up to this level. I think you guys are missing the biggest signing of the off-season as well from your list, which is the signing of Visit Malta, of the entire country of Malta as a sponsorship for Georgies for the upcoming season. And I have to wonder, will that extra cash flow allow them to follow in the footsteps of the other Maltese club in this league, which, of course, what vehicular transport are you providing to the league as a Maltese club? Green Gully have got their bus. Will there be a Visit Malta blimp? Are we going to see something different? Are we going to see something special from you with the Visit Malta cash in the kitty? The other big one is Puppy, who you may remember from Bulleen back in the day. He's been with Georgies. He won't be there. So he has been Luke Lofts' chauffeur for the last few years because Luke Lofts famously has not had a license. So who fills that driver role is really important to maximising Luke Lofts' ability out there this season. And he's going to be really key for them. If you're getting someone who's a bit of a yakker and is just chewing his ear off, he's not going to turn up to the game ready to perform. If the tunes aren't right, he's not going to be as good. Can you get a Visit Malta sort of chauffeur car for him just to do what he needs to do? Let him come out of the limo. Let him do his stuff. Like that. Honestly, that is the single... Whoever his chauffeur is Eric Vasiliadis' biggest signing of the offseason.
Maybe he got his license, Lachie.
Nah. You know what? If I was... No, the thing is, I actually think he's gotten to a point now where whether or not he has his license is irrelevant. If you've gotten that long where people are just driving you to and from training, get your license. Just don't say anything. Just, that car in the garage. No, that's someone else's. That's they're just using the car space at the moment. Just pretend you don't have your license and just take the free ride. But whoever bestows that free ride is very important. Very, very important for
we need
Georgies.
answers. We need answers, Lachie. We're going to need that to be one of the big questions.
We do.
Yeah. Do you think a chauffeur, Home Alone style, with his personal cheese pizza is going to be part of Luke Lofts' contract going forward?
But it's serious. I'm joking, but I'm not joking at the same time because his performances are going to be, I think, potentially quite important for for this team, Like, yes, they did score a lot of goals last season, but I think people who have seen Eric Vasiliadis' teams in the past in the top flight would not necessarily have said they were goal-scoring show ponies. Maybe they've turned the corner from last year. But I also remember the season before where they scored 39 goals in PPL 1. So, you're not fooling me that easily. One swallowed is not a summer make. But, yeah, the goalkeeper situation is a little bit on the concerning side. As Ivka said, I look at the list and I think, who from what you've signed, I think there's some very good, some solid players there, some good players. But who's going to be the star? Who do you look at in that list? Maybe Yagub Mustafa think that's going to be the guy for this team. Do they have enough of those guys this year? Because the other thing they're not going to have that other teams will, if I look at the teams I've got finishing around them, potentially in that relegation battle, they are teams generally who have survived it recently and are acutely aware as a club and in some cases as a playing group what it actually takes to survive these situations. And sometimes that experience can actually be more important than the on-paper quality. Look at Melbourne Knights last year. Look at Bentleigh Greens a couple of seasons ago. When shit hit the fan for them for the first time in a while, they had absolutely no idea what they were doing. It was like a deer in headlights, and they went down. Georgies don't have necessarily that recent experience of surviving in this league to call on, and I just have a feeling it might count against them.
I agree, 100%, Lachie. That's the issue with a team that gets promoted. If they're struggling, it's very hard for them because they had such a successful year last year, and Georgians have been on a good run of success over the past 5-6 years. So it's all been rosy. The momentum's been building. Vasiliadis has always had success, winning or coming second.
It wasn't all rosy. If you remember when they had to have an emotional, physical, spiritual, metaphysical reset, they had to go on a yoga retreat.
But it's a great point he makes because you're used to success and then it's not working. It's foreign territory. Whereas, like Lachie said, Altona, bring it on. We know what's coming.
All right, I reckon we should push on to Dandenong City, who start the season on -4 points after the pyrotechnics display at the grand final. They have a few notable outgoings here. Tom Yanakopoulos, we know, has gone to South Melbourne, was there for the championship, and is now strutting his stuff in Port Moresby. Kenny Athew has left and gone to Brunswick Juventus. Yagub Mustafa to Georgies. Diego Cuba has departed as well. I think there are a few more outgoings we don't have on the list here. But some notable signings. They haven't been that busy in the off-season, and we're, I think, yet to see some of their players announced on socials. No. But Xander Guy has just been announced, coming from Gold Coast Knights. He was supposed to play for Preston Lions last season, and he got injured on the eve of the season and departed the club before he recovered from that injury. I think he is a high ceiling, low floor guy would be my thing. Can he stay fit for the year? Is he motivated to go again and scale the mountain of Victorian football once more like he did with Avondale? If he is, then he could be an unbelievable A+ blue chip acquisition for them. Harry Ascroft comes in from Hume City, a real leader at the back, real solid player, and a big loss for Hume, I would say. And then your boy, Lachie, from Lawton Park, Archie McPhee, the scourge of the Preston Lions, joins the top flight. Ivka?
And I have a breaking late transfer for Dandenong City as well. Another Here We Go exclusive for the pod. Haven't gone on Twitter with this one. Very late this afternoon, Pierce Waring is signed at Dandenong City. 100% confirmed that one. So that's an interesting signing for them as well. That is their signings. I think there is a couple of players that they've brought in either from their youth team squad or elsewhere.
Well, they won the league with their 23s last season, I believe.
And we've seen Tolsey come out publicly with his concerns for this under-23 rule that's happened. Yeah, so we've seen Tolsey come out publicly and raise his concerns with this under-23 rule that you need on your roster this season because a lot of his players turned 24, so you had to let some go to make space for these under-23s. And I think his better youth team players that had a lot of success have gone to VPL 1 clubs for first team football. So that's why they've got limited signings. They've lost a few, I think probably a few more than what we've gotten, and haven't been able to bring in what they really wanted to bring in because they had to fill those under 23 spots. I still think that the core of that squad is very good. This is a team that made the grand final and pushed Heidelberg all the way in that grand final. Had a great final series. Did well throughout the year. Obviously very, very good season. -4, yes, it is difficult, but it's not the end of the world. It's a game and a half.
But if it's a difference between making finals and not, and it was pretty tight for them last time around. Yeah. I don't doubt Nick Tolios's ability for a second to prepare for a one-off cup game or finals fixture and plan for a specific opponent when he's got time to do it and win that game. Over the course of a whole season with this squad, I think it's going to be borderline to make the six again.
The concerns for them is it's an ageing squad as well. Webster's there again. Can he do it again? It was unbelievable in that final series. He was, especially against Dandenong Thunder in that elimination final, wound back the clock in that game. Can he do it again? He's getting older. And
he missed a good chunk with injury and forced his way back, ahead of schedule to be part of that finals run. So I think that's put some extra miles on the clock for him.
But then we forget, they've got one of the best players in the league, Jamie Latham.
Yeah.
You forget about him. Defensively, very good. Anaba. Harry Ashcroft's a great signing.
Just keep your hands off the referee, Gaku, this time around, please.
Ashcroft's a great replacement for Tommy G. Tommy G was, that's a big loss.
Yeah, but Tommy G was playing in holding midfield for most of the year. That's the thing. I don't know if they have a player who sweeps up and wins those physical duels.
Anaba could actually play that role.
Yeah, true.
Maybe that's why Ashcroft has been brought in. And him and Webster, that's a great pairing, Ashcroft and Webster.
Well, if they're fit.
Yeah.
If Webster's fit.
Still got Corey Saul there. The core of that group is very, very good.
Atherinos is probably ready to go to another level as well. He could improve. He's at the right age to kind of start hitting his peak.
Yeah, so, I'm still confident that they can play finals football. If they convert a lot of the draws they had last year, which was a shitload of them, into wins, they're right up there.
Yeah, Josh, I'm going to zag for a second on what you said about Dandy City and about Tolsey. I think he's been so good at getting the best out of what he has over a long period of time. Like the last couple of years, his teams have seemed to peak towards the end of the year, and he's been able to get the best out of what he has. I mean, he's the one of the only coaches to get a team directly promoted and straight into finals before what Preston did last year. That is a very, very nice achievement, what he did in 2024, what he did with Kingston, what he did with Bentleigh before that as well. And this is probably one of, if not his biggest test, because they've got to dig themselves out of a bit of a hole early with that -4 points deduction. But as good as he is for one-off games, he's also been to show that he's able to get the best out of what he has throughout a regular season. They have been the great road warriors of NPL Victoria during their time in the top tiers. Surprisingly enough, probably a better road team than they are a home team. And that's quite crazy that, you'd think that on law of averages that would eventually flip. And, there's been concerns around the state of the pitch at Frank Holohan now for quite some time. But, if they could change that home form just slightly, that goes even more in their favour going into this season. They could be an even better regular season team. Yes, they haven't made the whole litany of signings. Yes, they've got players that are a little bit older now. But I still think that they're right on up there. I agree with you, Ivka. I think that they're right in there for finals again this year. I think Nick Tolios is so good. Talking about what we spoke about with Loza about getting the best out of what he has, Tolsey's right up there as well. He's got guys that know the system. He's got guys that know the way they want to play. He's stuck with what's worked, basically. He's running it back, which is a risk at one way, but also at the same time, why fix what isn't broken if you can help it? And you can just sprinkle in around the edges those players to fix what you lost, to other teams in the off-season.
Just on that pitch, Nick, they've had a full renovation of that pitch. I
thought it was the second pitch that got
No, it was the first pitch. Full renovation, ripped it all up. New turf, hybrid, whatever that hybrid system is with the half fake grass and turf. So apparently it's 10 out of 10, that pitch now. Ooh. So we'll see how long it lasts though. But apparently a lot of work's been done to it, which is good. Just on Tolsey, the season starts turning to shit. book that trip to Greece, brother. Get your assistants to take care of the team, get them into the finals, and come back again.
Aruba, Jamaica. Oh, dear. Lachie?
It's an interesting one. I think, again, I come back to the point I made earlier about looking at the team not in isolation, but in the context of who I anticipate will be around them in what I am predicting will be a finals race. And I won't spoil my full 14, but a lot of the teams I've got around them are either perennial chokers, constant underwhelmers in this competition in the last few years, or teams that have got less recent experience of jumping into the finals. I still think that the core of a finals-making team is here. I like the Ashcroft signing a lot. McPhee's the really interesting one. I'm obviously a little bit biased owing to his Langwarren connections. I do think he's a very good striker, but he has figurative and literal enormous shoes to fill in the wake of King Kenny Athiu, who I was surprised to see leave, given he is getting on a bit in age, but is coming off one of his best seasons in the NPL most recently. So that's a massive gap for them to fill. McPhee has had a track record of coming up from a division below and scoring goals, but I think we could all acknowledge that the jump from VPL 2 to VPL 1 is a hop, skip, and a jump compared to the almighty leap that can be VPL 1 up to the top flight for a player who's never experienced it. I think he's a bit more mobile. He's a bit more able to get other players perhaps involved than Kenny Athiu is as a purely or more of a hold-up kind of play striker. But even despite that, I think some of its parts, this team, the continuity it's got, the coach that it's got, I reckon they're sneaking into finals.
Can I just add off of that? I just did some quick number crunching to sort out their home and away form over the last 2 years, just to give you guys a bit of I guess what's the right word I'm looking for? A bit of an insight into the difference of how they performed home and away. Their home form in the 2 years since they got promoted, they've only had 33 points, so 9 wins, 6 draws, 11 losses. On the road, 12 wins, 8 draws, 6 losses for 44 points. On top of that, 2 wins on the road in finals as well, going to Avenger Park and George Andrews and winning those games, and 2 losses on the road in finals as well, obviously one of those being a neutral grand final against Heidelberg. So that is pretty darn impressive. Ivka, if you're talking about how the pitch is looking great at Frank Holohan this season, and that's going to be perhaps a little bit of an equaliser for their home form, and they can play a little bit more of their style with a better pitch and something that might actually be useful for them. I mean, why can't they dig themselves out of a -4 points deduction and easily book themselves in finals for a 3rd straight season? It'd be an incredible achievement if they get to finals again this year for a team that, remember where they were in 2022 when they got relegated and what Tolsey's been able to do since he's come in those doors.
Well, Dandenong City, the one team who hasn't succumbed to the transfer merry-go-round this off-season, maybe continuity will prove king for Tolsey's side. Let's go to the other side of the Dandy Derby divide. Dandenong Thunder, in stark contrast, have lost basically the entire spine of the team that got them to an elimination final and to 3rd place last season. Yuki Uchida to South Melbourne, of course. Aiden Edwards has gone back to WA. Mitchell Rook didn't play too much. Leonard Umazi to Altona Magic. But Tice Van Amerongen to the Perco revolution at Sutherland Sharks. Wanted to get on a documentary series, I suppose. He's gone. Kyle Taylor has gone to the Gold Coast, you're saying here, Ivka?
Yeah, that's all the info I got. Didn't say which Gold Coast club.
Maybe he's just going on holiday.
Yeah.
But he was an outstanding midfielder in the league last season, a real unsung hero, I think, of that run. Jamie Young has moved back to Queensland, and according to our spreadsheet here, Daniel Clark is flying paper planes. He's gone MIA. So maybe he's back to the state leagues, back to Eltham Redbacks maybe. George Mells comes in. Jackson Courtney Perkins, familiar contributor. He was at Moreton City during the championship. The replacements in goal are Andrew Withers returning to the club. He just can't quit Adam Pittock. Wherever Pittock goes, Withers follows. Dennis Martin being promoted to the top flight from Nunawading City, a team that flirted with relegation from VPL 2 last season. Parker Williams from Melbourne Victory, the young defender. Ollie Yankolovsky from Port Melbourne. Tabena Abani from Melbourne Victory. I think he's a player we all quite like, the lightning quick left back. Harry Phillips from Dubai City, English import. Can't claim to know anything about him. Mathiang from Kingsway in WA. Jack Morton from the Melbourne Knights. Joey English is another visa player. Lee Woo Hyok. I'll try and get a better pronunciation before I commentate them, from Pyeongchang United in South Korea. And perhaps the headline name on this list, young Kalen Majekadunmi, the central defender from Perth Glory, who's played, maybe not regularly, but has quite a few A-League appearances under his belt and a couple of goals as well, Lachie.
Yeah, he is a really interesting signing. I don't want to use this... I'm not going to use the term high ceiling, low floor for the third time in this podcast. I used it once. Josh used it again. I'm not going to... It's a disparate list of additions, shall we say. I actually am far less interested, to be honest, though, Josh, in Majeka Dunmi, although I do think he's a very good player and a good get. Lee Woo Hyok, very interesting signing. I mean, he's got, I think it's 50-plus appearances in the top flight of Korea.
116 appearances in the K-League.
Wow. Okay. I must have been transfer market must have been telling some porky pies then. He was also part of a squad that won the Asian Champions League with John Book. Didn't play very heavily, but was involved in a pretty high caliber setup. And he's only 32. A 6'1" midfielder who's only 32 with that sort of experience in NPL Victoria. I like it. I like it quite a lot. There's other good stuff here. Abani, you've mentioned. Lut Matiang is a player I've seen a little bit of in NPL WA with Olympic Kingsway. Boom or bust, generally, signings from WA tend to be. They tend to go really well or just disappear off the face of the earth. I'm not sure what he'll be, but I like what I've seen. But I am far less interested in any of my own opinions about Dandenong Thunder. I am solely interested in Josh Parrish's opinion because I want to know if he will predict them to get relegated again. That's all I want to know.
Well, the context for that tip was a particular age investigation that had been released just around the time we recorded, and I was predicting maybe a Pittock departure and a Thunder implosion. That, of course, went the opposite direction. I think they'll be stable, but I don't know.
Is that the first time anyone's ever used the word stable to describe Thunder? That might be a first.
I think they might be in the sort of mid-table mediocrity range here when I look at their competitors and the amount of turnover of the squad. All their best players are gone apart from Hassan Jallo and Wade Decker, the Churches League's finest. It's pretty tough for Adam Pittock. He's just lost so many players. So is he going to play the same kind of system? Probably, but it's not going to be the same team.
It is literally the spine of their team that is gone. It's best defender, best goalkeeper, one of the better goalkeepers in the league in terms of shot stopping last year, best midfielder, one of the best midfielders in the league again, or two best midfielders. That entire spine has been ripped out of them. The goalkeeper situation again is one that gives me pause for thought. Dennis Martin was good for Nunawading last year. He is coming from several leagues down. Andrew Withers was a good goalkeeper when he was at Port Melbourne. A solid...
I was never convinced by Withers at Port Melbourne. I always felt he had a mistake in him.
I would probably be more charitable than you. I would never have had him in my top 4, but I'd have him hovering around the outside. Again, though, he has spent 2 years, we don't know the context of these 2 years, but outside of the NPL system, so that does have to be factored in. But as with Goran Lozanovsky earlier, my trust in Adam Pittock exceeds my concerns of their, rumours of their demise.
Can I just add off of that, Lachie? I was busy again crunching numbers while you guys were discussing Thunder. Adam Pittock's record as a regular season coach is as good as any, I think, in NPL Victoria. The numbers are quite incredible. I mean, he's only missed finals twice in the years that he's gotten through full regular seasons. I mean, he missed it in 2019 and his first season at Dandenong Thunder, where he was a last-minute inclusion, very similar to Loza, had to just get a team on the park, get a squad out there, and he got the most what he could out of them. 81 wins, 36 draws, 52 losses. He's an amazing regular season coach, and he's been so good at, I feel like I'm saying it again, at getting the best out of what he has. But I feel like he's really right up there as one of the best when it comes to a 26-game season. So I think Dandenong Thunder are going to be ultra competitive this season. They're going to be a team that I think that their ceiling is, again, it's to play finals again this year. I know they've lost a lot. Like, that is a lot of talent to go out the door when you're losing guys like Yuki Achita and Kyle Taylor and Tice Van Amerengen and Jamie Young's leadership at the back and his, amazing experience that you're getting of him in goals. But I can't doubt Adam Pittock as a coach. I find it really hard to write him off. And I think they've still got enough there to maybe cause a little bit of a stir. Jackson Courtney Perkins hasn't played at that same level that he did under Pittock at Port Melbourne. But what's he going to be like now reuniting with his former bosses? One of those attackers to partner up with Jello. Lachie, I'm very fascinated to watch Dandenong Thunder this season. They're the great unknown, but one thing we do know about Adam Pittock is he's going to get points on the board.
And one of the big underpinning strengths of this team last year, and it's always been bandied about as sort of just the thing you say about Thunder. Like if someone asks you at a party about Dandenong Thunder, it's just the thing you say. Oh, their home's a fortress. They always play well at home. But last year, they actually did play really well at home. They were undefeated across 13 games. And they set this...
Until the elimination final.
Well, yes. If you just ignore... in the regular season, they went undefeated.
And that's Adam Pittock's favourite season. It's the
well,
regular one.
As Nick has just pointed out.
But to your point there, though, Lachie, like that can't be forgotten. Finals are a weird atmosphere. That stuff can happen. In a regular season, what they did, Lachie, to your point, was bloody impressive. They beat Heidelberg at home. They beat Avondale at home. Like, that stuff can't be forgotten.
And part of the reason that happened is because it is an intimidating, exciting sort of atmosphere. It's a difficult place to play. I have an area where they could improve on that, enhance that to help keep the unbeaten streak in the regular season alive. Now, they were first to market, I think, with an AI ground announcer last year, the robot voice ground announcer. AI has come a long way in the space of a year. We were limited to sort of primitive digital voices this time a year ago. But could they invest? Now we can basically recreate one-to-one likenesses of real people if there's enough information about them in the world. Can they find someone with a super fearsome voice and just get that AI? Could we get like an Undertaker AI to read out the team lists and all the lights go out right? Well, I probably shouldn't be talking about lights out in Thunder games, but anyway, all the lights go out and you just hear boom, and then the AI Undertaker reads out the team list. I think they could just go up a few gears in enhancing and enshrining this incredible home advantage that they've got. Because again, the small things like that make a big difference at the end of the season.
Also, the amount of times that we heard Thunderstruck pre-game before that elimination final, I was sure the stream was going to get taken down for copyright infringement. But no, Dandenong Thunder, a great ground to visit if you haven't. And man, if they'd scored a goal that night, that place would have gone absolutely bananas. Any final thoughts, Ivka?
I just hope that the Dandenong Thunder board have tapered down their expectations with this squad. Because if they do have high expectations at that club, this isn't the same team as last year. I don't think they can repeat the season they had. My fear is that in the past they've notoriously been known to pull the trigger on a coach, and if things aren't going well and they've got higher expectations than what this team's actually capable of, I hope it doesn't get into a situation where Pittock's under pressure or he loses his job because of unrealistic expectations, because then their season can implode. They just need to hover around that mid-table, possibly make the finals. I don't think they will, personally. I think they've lost too much key personnel. But Pittock is up there with one of the best coaches in the competition, and They can just take it as a rebuild year, really, for themselves.
I thought he did an exceptional job last season, and I voted for him as my coach of the year in our end of season pod for what he did, getting that team to play the football that it played, because they were awesome to watch sometimes. Yeah. And I think as you say, if the Thunder board are ever thinking about getting rid of him, who's going to be a better Thunder coach than Adam Pittick? There isn't a coach out there who would take that job who's a better coach than he is. Let's go to Green Gully. This is really interesting. They've been busy in the off season. Craig Filer's been putting in a lot of phone calls. According to Michael Weir, he called him about 100 times before he got him over the line from Hume City. I think that was a bit of hyperbole on Big Mike's part. But Brandon Cubaneo going to Altona Magic. Ryan Inman back to England. Maurice Nugent goes to Melbourne Knights. Josh Heaton to Altona Magic. Liam Driscoll back to Perth. Jacob Eliopoulos to South Melbourne. Taylor Shrivers to Hume City. I don't think he was actually on their list last season.
He'd done his ACL in pre-season.
Edisu Bayu via Preston to Hume City, and Dor Jock has gone to Malta.
Big loss.
Yes, your boy. In comes Yusuf Ahmed, although we understand he's done a pretty serious injury.
I think it's a season-ending injury from what I've heard. Ripped his hamstring off the bone. If he hasn't already had surgery, he's having surgery. I can't see him with his hamstring history as well. Can't see him playing this season.
Can I just ask Yui to still bring his boys, even if he's not playing? Maybe he can be the capo for the U crew. Bring the megaphone out. Kerr, massive signing from Avondale. Awesome pickup. Taufik Olamawewe at the heart of defence is a terrific signing. Bilal Habib from South Melbourne. Oscar Carlson, a long-time Chicky and Filer collaborator, comes in from Sweden. He was at Hume City a couple of years ago as well. Tom Werndl from Knights. Michael Weir between the sticks from Hume City. End of an era at Hume from the looks of these outgoings. And just recently, just today as we record, the announcement of two New Zealanders, one of whom is a dual national South Sudanese player, Wan Gatkek, who's been playing for Western Springs, but they actually played together. They're former teammates from, I think it was Western Suburbs in New Zealand, him and Nathan Symes, the striker who's played 4 years of Division 1 college soccer in the USA. Wofford Terriers is his last club, but there are a couple of amusingly named colleges he's played for, but Division 1, good standard, and maybe, just maybe, filling the striker role that's never truly been filled, maybe since the departure of Alex Salmon. We've had fits and starts. Obviously Pierce Waring had a great run. Adolf Kadakpo as a makeshift centre forward was really good until he's got his move overseas, but we haven't had a permanent replacement for Salmon. And just maybe Symes, who describes himself as a very traditional centre forward. I actually interviewed him the other day, and he was bigging up all the qualities really that Gully have been missing. It would have been music to the ears of any Gully supporters, because he's like, I'd like to hold the ball up, bring other players into play, love the ball in the box, in the air. I'm like, yes, a traditional number 9 and not a midfielder playing out of position at long last. But the funny story about Symes and Gatkek is they both played together in New Zealand, and they didn't know that they'd both signed for the same club in Victoria. So one of them rocks up and sees the other one has already signed for Green Gully, and there's this great reunion. So a nice little story, and maybe some inbuilt chemistry between an attacking midfielder and a striker already, which is nice, especially when you've got such turnover in the squad. Lachie, I'll let you be first cap off the rank for this one. Pretty pessimistic about Gully after talking them up for a couple of years in a row, and they've disappointed you, but is this the year?
I never thought I'd quote George Bush on this podcast, but I'm going to quote George Bush on this podcast. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. Fool me can't get fooled again. I'm not going to be fooled again. It will not happen. I have been burnt too many times by this team, and it is another situation where what my eyes see and what my brain says are two different things. Kerr, awesome signing. Olamawewe, awesome signing. Oscar Carlson, he's a gun. Bilal Habib, great player. Tom Werndl, I think is a better player than the last year at Knights suggested. Michael Weir, one of the best keepers in the competition. And I see all of it. I think it's great, but it's not happening. It's just not happening. I am not going to stake my reputation on this team anymore until I see 26 games played and the number 6, because I don't think it'll be any higher than that. Just me personally, next to Green Gully's name. I'm just not doing it. Nathan Symes, an interesting one. Do you reckon Chicky and Craig Filer were thinking, oh, this is class. We've signed a player straight out of the English Championship here, only to realise that he just said Wofford really fast and they thought he said Wofford. Jokes aside, I do think this is, of all the years I have said Green Gully could make finals, I do actually think this is their best squad yet, but I've just been burned too many times to actually say that they will make finals.
Lachie, Green Gully did just hold a golf day, so I hope at least one person said, now watch this drive. But Nick, you want to jump in?
See, you guys are talking a lot about the signings on the field and, Green Gully, for what they're going to dish up with the 11 players that take the field on a week-to-week basis and those on the bench. But you know me, when it comes to Green Gully, I like to see what's happening elsewhere around them. They brought back the shiny lights last year in the light show, which I was very excited about last season. They had the fireworks for the big anniversary game, Josh, last year. But there is one thing I'm asking for, and it's not in the new signings list. I don't know if you've got some intel. But there's one signing that is missing. One signing. And I don't know if it's technically a re-signing or a new signing. But when Green Gully rock up for their first road game of the season at Olympic Village and people are standing around getting their gyro at the canteen at Olympic Village and getting their drinks, I want to hear this coming from the car park. The Green Gully soccer supporter bus better be making a return. Now, I must apologise for those watching the YouTube because, Mark, as you said, you were talking about Yui Ahmed's potentially season-ending injury. I was trying to find the right sound effect and I made myself laugh when I was on mute as you were saying that because I heard the noise out loud. So apologies, Yui. I was not laughing at the hamstring injury. I was laughing at the thought of the soccer supporter bus. And I find it even funnier that Lachie Flanagan, who bestowed this joke upon this podcast last year and destroyed the pod, has turned his camera off. But yeah, I hope that the soccer supporter bus is back because that might be the missing elixir for Green Gully and their search for finals. But no, on a serious point, I think that this is one of the better squads that they've put together in quite some time, and I think they're going to be thereabouts in that push for finals. It's such a tight little mix of teams, but I think they're going to be right there in amongst it. And Josh, I sincerely hope that this is the year that they have found that answer up front as their number 9. I sincerely hope that they have got their long-term striker. We've seen many come through the door. It's like the AC Milan number 9 curse for many years where we saw many names come through, but I think this one might be the one. And Nathan Symes might be their Olivier Giroud.
I was looking at some of his highlights. They're available on YouTube if you're interested, and there's some good finishes in there, but there's also just a lot of him just holding the ball off 2 or 3 defenders and winning a free kick, which I love to see. He's a strong, stocky centre forward. Nick, what happened there?
Sorry, I was going back for more, and then my YouTube short started playing.
I'm not editing that out, by the way. That's staying in the podcast.
Symes is, on a serious note, reminds me of Hamish Watson from what I've seen of his highlights video. And we know how good the hammer was in Victoria. Same kind of pedigree as well. Obviously hasn't played in the A-League like Hamish did. But
well, he knows Hamish Watson, actually. He said, I asked him about some of the players that play down here, some of the Kiwis, and he's a friend of Watson's.
So there you go.
Maybe he's moulded his game off him a little bit.
But I think Green Gully's addressed all the issues that they've had over the past year, 2 years. They've recruited exactly what they needed. It's a massive blow. That was such a big signing for them. They would be spewing about that as well. But
I don't think it's as bad now that they've signed a striker, though.
Correct.
Because I thought he was going to be the 9.
Correct. And Kirk Kerr is a great signing, and they've already got good players there. That was a squad that, if they started the season off better than they did, they came under heavy criticism from myself personally in that first 6-7 games. There you go, Lachie, 6-7, eh? But
I'm editing that
out. I thought, they had a really bad start to the season, but they finished strong. They had some good results. It's been a a bit of time that Chicky spent there now. So he's got the squad that he's wanted. It's his squad now. I think they're a lock for finals, to be honest. I think if they don't make finals, it's a bad season for them.
Yeah, there's no excuses anymore for this group, and they've made Nick.
Another one that flies under the radar. Like the season-ending injuries, players that they're losing are disappointing, but they are getting some players back from significant injuries. And one player I am excited to hopefully, I hope I'm not jinxing him here, see a full season from is Ashton Alawalia. I really liked him in the years that he has been fit. He's never really got fully going at Gully. I think he could be a big sort of additional piece for them this year. And I hear what Nick's saying, and it keeps blurting out on the audio, and it that will be a significant factor for Green Gully. But I have it on good authority that Avondale have got the perfect antidote. They're obviously seething after that 5-1 loss away to Gully last year. They're very, that left a real sour taste in the mouth, a blip on the radar under Zoc. But they have got the antidote, because when they hear that horn, they will reply with this. That's it from me.
This is what you come to this podcast for.
I knew you had something cooking. I was looking at you. You're scrolling through your phone. I'm like, this guy has got something. He's got something on the stove.
I once got stuck after a Melbourne derby in the car park because the boom gate wouldn't come up, and everyone was honking. And after about 20 minutes of honking, someone played that one. Just out of nowhere, just bum, 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 bum. Every single car was just in tears. It was so funny. Anyway, it's always stuck with me.
Oh dear. All right. Well, let's move along from Green Gully. I think the last point I would make on them is that they've made a few changes backroom wise. In that John Clemente's come in as an assistant coach, and I think it's enabled Craig Fowler to focus a bit more on the recruitment side of things. And you've seen it bear fruit, because their recruitment this year is a lot better than what they managed last year.
John Clemente's a great assistant coach as well.
Yeah.
It's a very handy addition to their coaching staff.
Yeah, so I think just the balance is better on and off the pitch, and the Gully Bistro is absolutely flying in the off season. By the way, ABBA concert sold out, Beatles tribute show. They've added 40 extra seats, so get your tickets now, boys. Let's go to Heidelberg United, the reigning champions. A couple of notable departures. Aiden Fetahajic departs. He didn't play last season due to his injury. Sabit Nyor back to the Mariners after his loan finished. Owen Stokes, whose career never really got off the ground at Heidelberg, leaves to Manningham United in the second tier. Mohamed Aidara to Bentleigh, and the big one, Jamal Ali to the Preston Lions. But as revealed by you a couple of days ago, Ivka, the top scorer, Bull Juach, has flown the coop.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest out for Heidelberg. Really, the top goal scorer of the competition was flying. It was probably key to the way they played too. Massive loss. There's a lot of big outs there. Jamal Ali, obviously, another huge out. Sabit Nyor, we saw him depart before the final series. He another big loss. So it's hard to replace those guys, but with their ins, Marcus Humbert, we saw him play in the championship. He's going to be right up there as one of the best players in the competition. There's a Rising Star Award this season. I think he'll be the red-hot favourite to take that out this season. Gideon Rock as well comes over for a bit of defensive cover, so that's a handy addition. Kieran Bramwell signed for the championship. He would be the obvious replacement for Bull Juach, but they're very different players. Bull Juach is high energy on the break, able to be a clinical finisher. Kieran Bramwell's not that type of striker. We've seen him miss a lot of chances in the past, so he's going to get a lot of chances with Heidelberg. He's just got to be ruthless. If he can take those chances, he can be a 15, 20 goal scorer in this competition. I'm not fully sold on it. But he does have the capabilities of being better than what he was at the Knights. But this is a championship winning team with still a lot of quality in it, and with the best coach going around, Johnny A. You got to say they're going to be right up there again.
I think that there's a sort of theory that floats around in kind of football analytics nerdy circles about what makes a good striker. Is it clinical finishing, or is it just getting in goal scoring positions more consistently than other players? And at least the number crunchers seem to think it's actually the latter. Like players, even Lionel Messi doesn't outperform his XG by more than 30% or 50%. It's the players who get in scoring positions that are the most effective for their teams, and Kieran Bramwell does that time and time again.
Did you just compare Lionel Messi to Kieran Bramwell?
No, I didn't. It was the reverse comparison, actually. I mean, Messi,
how many goals has Messi scored at Knight Stadium?
I was doing to illustrate the point that it's not necessarily just how good you are at finishing the one chance you get. It's about turning up time and again in goal-scoring positions and creating chances for your team with your movement being in the right place at the right time. I think Bramwell has that, even if he can be a frustrating player. It's like Robbie Cruz for the Socceroos for years. He was the whipping boy of that team because he missed so many chances. But guess what? They subbed him off and they didn't create any chances.
Well, that's my concern on Bramwell, though, because even in the poor Knights team, he got a lot of chances and missed a lot of sitters. So that's my concern.
But he also was in the right position to get a lot of chances in a poor Knights team. So you can argue it from both ways.
You got to finish
him.
But
I think he's a good hold-up or link-up player, I would say, as well. I think Heidelberg will have to be slightly different and lean even more into the sort of Postecoglou influences that Anastasiadis has, maybe less of a transitional team and more of a team that plays into feet and builds up slower and encircles the edge of the penalty area. And I think they can do that.
That's what's going to be interesting for Heidelberg, because that's what they built their success on, was their transitional moments. They were devastating at that, and teams couldn't handle it. They weren't a free-flowing, possession-based team. They did like to sit back, win the ball in the middle of the park and break with speed. They have lost that. They have lost that element, which is concerning. Bezzetto on the wing isn't that type of winger. He does have a bit of pace, but Sepit Noor, that's a huge loss. Jawach, huge loss.
Do we know if Besetto's recovered from his swimming injury? That's how he did his shoulder, by the way.
Don't forget Ali, the amount of goals he scored and goal contributions he had. He was pivotal to the way they played. Do they have a direct replacement for that? Don't know.
Carl O'Sullivan from Treaty United.
Well, you know what? He scored a banger in pre-season if you see the video that they put up. So possibly could be a replacement for him. Joseph Lee as well from Auckland. He's got a good CV. So it's going to be interesting to see if he tweaks the way they play. I would say he probably wouldn't want to, because it was highly successful for him. They got so far in every competition they played in, but, who are we to judge what they do? Johnny A knows a lot more than we do, and like I said, they'll be right up there again.
I think what they missed with Jawach is what he struck so many times. I've talked about it in the pod before. They would have a long spell of attacking possession. The move would break down, or the other team would win the ball. They would try and counterattack. Heidelberg would counter-press like crazy, win the ball again, and in that moment of disorganisation, as the other team's coming out and trying to transition themselves, they get hit by Bull Jawach running off the last defender. He did it so often, and invariably it was Asahi Yokokawa threading the through ball through, and it's exactly that goal that Jawach scored against Preston away from home that we commentated. He did it so often, and they're going to lose that sort of counter-pressing bang. You just had the sucker punch after, you just thought you'd absorbed all that pressure. But I think they might even be better in sort of those tight little passing combinations around the box with Bramwell in that position, because Jawach, for all his immense qualities, not the most adept player in tight spaces. So that's kind of the positive spin on it. The negative spin is he scored 22 goals, and it's really hard to replace that. Nick?
Yeah. One point that I think hasn't been mentioned is, I think regardless, Heidelberg still have the best midfield, in my opinion, best midfield combination in the league right now. When you've got Anthony Lesiotis, who was just unbelievable last season. Marcus Humbert was amazing in the championship as well. Really, really talented player. And Asahi Yokokawa. That in of itself, being able to keep that midfield three, or, add to that midfield three with Humbert, I guess now getting a full preseason, taking that Moe Dara spot now, it's very, very strong. I think, you guys are talking about Marcus Humbert as a potential rising star. I think that he's someone who's going to poll very, very well on gold medal night. He's going to be someone to really keep an eye on this season. Look, finding that answer up front is going to be interesting. I mean, we saw a lot more of Jay McGowan as well in the championship, and I mean, Choctaw has played. They're going to be a bit more reliant on the two of them to play a little bit more on the wings. Angus Taylor's someone I'm excited to see a lot more of and play. You guys didn't mention. I think he's someone who impressed in the championship and has impressed a lot in NPL circles. And I think he's someone that could very well be someone that, might be the one player that bursts onto the scene. He's someone who can chip in 7 or 8 goals this season. But when you do lose Jamal Ali, it's a very unique situation beyond just losing Buljuach and Civic Noor, because you get 8 goals from right back or 9 goals, whatever the final tally was. That's so hard to replicate really across, really world football, to have a fullback who can score at that level. That's, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Teo Hernandez sort of levels that we'd seen in years gone by. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Carlo Sullivan can do. It'll be fascinating to see what the defensive makeup is now, that Gideon Arok's there as well. He's left lean and Ben Collins still going to be the main partnership. Do they shift to maybe more of a back three now that they've got Gideon Arok there? Does Gideon Arok maybe play at fullback? Fletcher Fulton was a revelation at left back last season. So there's a lot of unknowns about Heidelberg in that sense. But as you said, how can we doubt Johnny A at all? I think we all know that this team is going to be damn good regardless of who they lose. And you're back in the recruitment, you're back in the players that he's got. And I still think they're a team that they're going to be right in amongst it for silverware again this season. I think the fascinating watch with them, and like many other teams, but particularly Heidelberg, because they've kept a lot of the core of the squad that played in the championship, is the shorter pre-season. I think that's going to be a watch with them, like some of the other teams, how they go with, not having as much of a break, and they've played so much football over the last year and a bit. But again, if you back any team that's going to be able to do it and back it up again and go again, it's Heidelberg. So, yeah, no reason to write them off this year, even without without those key players that they've lost. I think we're going to see some real players burst onto the scene for them this season, and I think they're going to be right up there again.
Yeah, I ran into a certain voice of Heidelberg United on the street here in Moonee Ponds before we recorded, and he was a little bit pessimistic about Heidelberg. And I said, mate, have you seen everybody else? Like, there are concerns we have. They're still the best team in the competition for my money, Lachie.
The more I have heard in this conversation, the more comfortable I have felt about putting them as a lock for first, to be quite honest with you. That's my feeling. I think one of the things that hasn't been mentioned yet is similarly to Dandenong City. I know the individual losses are significant, but the losses are less. This is a team that, relatively speaking, especially in its foundational elements, and the foundation is one of the best bits of this Heidelberg team down back, has continuity, has stability from last year. South Melbourne, yes, did make signings from the NPL to the Championship, but they've then gone and made another round of signings from then, so they've still got that fluctuation to build with. A lot of the players who have come in here have already played in the Heidelberg system for 6 odd weeks under John Anastasiadis, so there is that familiarity already. Like, for me, the amount of turnover that John Anastasiadis is dealing with, from a quality perspective, it's high. But this is a guy who oversaw a generational changing of the guard last year at Heidelberg. Like, club legends departing left, right, and centre, and just said, nah, no worries. Took the team to a championship. Remember when we were all crapping our dacks about their left-back slot because, they didn't have Adrian Zara anymore and Dalibor Markovic looked unconvincing? Well, now Fletcher Fulton's one of the best left-backs in the competition, Yes, Kieran Bramwell. It's interesting the points you make about Bramwell, Ivka, and his potential for profligacy. It's interesting to me because when I spoke to John Anastasiadis last year about Buljuach, one of the things he mentioned first of all is that what people don't see, but maybe don't credit enough because they see the goal scoring statistics of Juach, is that he actually misses a shed load of chances as well. He was still a good finisher, don't get me wrong, but he was another person who got a high volume of opportunities, missed a lot, but still scored plenty. And if Kieran Bramwell can hit double digits in a seriously dysfunctional Melbourne Knights team last year. I've actually got quite a lot of confidence in him that in a better system that will be catered, hopefully, to playing around him, that there's a lot of upside. Carlo Sullivan's the big one, how he replaces Jamal Ali, and that's a legitimate concern. But again, Ali didn't play in the championship after round 3, and they, until the semi-final stage when they were absolutely gassed, didn't miss a beat. They already lost Sabitnor for the championship, really didn't miss a beat. They played without Idara for the championship. Humbert became one of the stars of the tournament. I have got, with the additions of some of the players that I know less about, like a Joseph Lee, Angus Taylor was good in flashes, but Gideon Arock as well as that third string centre-back to come in and provide some recovery, and I think he can play full-back positions as well if required. I just can't see... I can't see another team beating them to first this year, to be honest.
You mentioned 2 words in your answer there, Lachie. Absolutely gassed. That's the one concern I really have about Heidelberg. That taxing season, which has been covered in pretty extensive detail on many platforms, but going all the way to the Australia Cup final, Doherty Cup final, Championship semi-final, full season of NPL to the grand final, is that going to catch up with this group at some stage? I think they're professional enough at Heidelberg to manage the minutes and maybe rotate a little bit if they have to. But that's one little tiny asterisk over all the sides that have played in the championship, not just Heidelberg. We'll get to South Melbourne and their fixture load very shortly. But it seems like, without spoiling our predictions, it seems like we're all edging towards a consensus number 1 pick here. Let's go to Hume City. Big red flags for me over this off-season for Hume. So many pillars of this side have departed. Harry Ascroft, Rob Harker, who I thought had real potential to develop into one of the better strikers in the competition if he got his body right, but they haven't kept faith in him. I guess, you have a down year, you get rid of your visa players. That's usually how it goes, but he's gone to Kingsway in WA. They've loaded up, by the way. Mark Ocheng to Melbourne Knights. Michael Weir is such a huge loss going to Green Gully. Lloyd Isgrove to St Albans Dinamo is a big departure. Mason Tatafu joined Bayswater City in the championship. Oliver Kellart has left. Asen Ishak to the Knights. Joseph Ford to Oakleigh. And in comes Jacob Adams, who's been playing in the college system. Chris Oldfield. Josh Wilkins in the year of our Lord 2026, back in the top flight. Would you credit it? I loved him at Heidelberg, by the way. What a player. He was Jamal Ali before Jamal Ali.
That's a good point.
Braden Spink from South Melbourne. Adisu Bayu had a pretty good Oz Championship campaign, I would say, for Preston. In a team that was struggling to make a difference up top. He provided a bit of spark. John Pykopoulos from Melbourne Victory's NPL side. Japanese player from Eastern Lions, so he's probably awesome. Taylor Shrivers comes back in from long-term injury. Steve White from the Melbourne Knights. Zahi Addis from Gold Coast United, almost joined Preston, by the way, the left back. Munib Adus from Oakleigh Cannons, who we haven't seen for ages because he's been injured, and Koda Kador, the former Western United and South Melbourne player. He played a couple of games in the championship, but was mostly unavailable due to Lebanon international duty, but he's a fullback. So a lot of changes to this squad, and Ivka, I'm not impressed with the recruitment in the off-season from Nick Haggerty. I think they've lost more than they've brought in, on paper at least.
Yeah, I've got a lot of concerns with this squad. When Heggs came in last year, didn't have exactly the greatest run. They kind of faltered. They were in a finals spot and fell out of that top 6 with poor form. The other signings that I like, Chris Oldfield is a good signing, but he did have a decent injury last season.
But is he an upgrade or downgrade on Michael Weir?
They're on par.
I think it's a downgrade.
I think Weir had a great season last year. Chris Oldfield, don't underestimate him. He's still a very good keeper, but he's coming back from injury.
Chris Oldfield's a solid keeper, but Michael Weir can make ridiculous top draw saves. He's just bigger.
Oldie can still do that. Don't write him
Weir's
off.
better off crosses as well. I think it's a downgrade.
Steve White is a handy addition if he's fit. We saw him struggle last year a lot with injury, playing through injury. If he can get fit, it's a good signing. But the rest, like Taylor Shrivers, yes, he's a very good centre back. I've worked with him. He's good, but he didn't play any football last season. He was injured. He'd done his ACL. So he's coming back from injury. A lot of these guys are downgrades on what they've lost, and what they lost wasn't that great either. They did have a poor finish to the year, very inconsistent. So they haven't upgraded on some of the okayish players that they lost. I watched them in pre-season against the Melbourne Victoria NPL side a couple of weeks ago. They were 3-0 down after 20 minutes against that Victory side, and they looked really poor. That's when the alarm bell started ringing for me, and a lot of these guys played in that friendly. Oldfield didn't, and Josh Wilkins wasn't playing, but still a lot of guys were playing in that game. I don't know. I really don't know. I've got concerns that it might be a bit of a relegation battle for Hume City this season. I just can see the decline happening at the moment, and we're used to them bringing in some decent talent. Yeah, I'm not sold on this squad that they've put together.
There's a lot of ifs, buts and maybes. Players coming back from long-term injuries that they've signed. Maniba Dus is awesome, one of the quickest players in the league before he got injured. What's he going to be like now coming back to first-team football? Steve White, as you mentioned, looked absolutely cooked last season. And 2 years before that, or a year before that, under Ben Khan, whenever that was, he was top 3 midfielder in the competition. Yeah. He was unbelievable, but he wasn't that last year. He couldn't keep up with the pace of play. That's just the reality of what we saw. I hope he's better, because I love watching him. He's such a good player on the ball, but if he's at the physical level he was last season, no chance. Yeah. So it's tough to look at this Hume side and say they're finishing higher than they did last season. Does anyone disagree?
No, I unfortunately, of the signings that they've brought in that we know of, so much of it feels like it is predicated on the best possible things happening. You've got at least 6 players there who, you've already mentioned the likes of Adis coming off from injury, Shriver, White, all injured. Chris Oldfield, let's not forget, played 6 games as well last year due to severe injury. Now, maybe it's a bit different for a goalkeeper who doesn't have to run around, but it's still a significant thing. Josh Wilkins is coming back to the top flight for the first time in a couple of years. Adisu Bayu, he was good for Preston in the championship, but he was very hot and cold at Green Gully and featured very inconsistently over the last couple of seasons there. So there's at least 6 players in that list who you are relying on to be the best version of themselves as opposed to the version that they might be. And that could be the difference between legitimate threat to Hume City's safety and, maybe being a finals pushing mid-table team. I think that they probably split the difference and finish in a sort of mid-table position. But, this is a team that are hard to trust, right? Like, Hegarty seems like he'll be the continuity candidate and seems like a safe pair of hands. And I think he's a better coach than 2 wins in 10 when he came in at the end of last year suggests. But how many years has it been since Hume City made it through the year with 1 coach? Like, I have a hard time. I think they're better maybe than what you guys are saying personally, but I also have a hard time trusting the team, because you don't know if and when certain implosions might happen in this season. Things seem hunky-dory at Hume 1 second, and then coach has been sacked, and no one knows what's going on.
I think, sorry Josh, just one point to add to that, Lachie. Like, the one thing that Hume were really good at the last couple of years was beating the teams in around them and banking points in those sort of games, and especially in those mid-table sort of matches. Like, that was probably the difference between them being a finals contender in years gone by, and a team that sort of was stuck just outside the 6th, and did catch up with them in the last 10 games of last year when Dandy City were able to push past them and get into 6th. But, in those last 2 years, they've lost a lot of attacking talent, particularly. When you lose Amir Abdullah, you lose Lloyd Isgrove, who were winning games off their own boot. It's going to be interesting to see how they fill those sort of gaps. They've also signed Christopher Engelhardt, who's a Mexican and German citizen, Mexican, born in Mexico. He's a right winger that's come in at the last moments, was announced last week. But yeah, there's a lot relying on guys like Munib Adis and Godfrey Dobele to really be able to reach those heights, or really be able to to bang in the goals consistently. So we'll see what they're able to do this year, Hume City, but I think that they're going to be in and around that mid-table bunch, just based off what we've heard and looking at the squad on paper so far.
And this is just a last public appeal to Hume City this year. Please play Josh Bingham up front. Play him as a 9.
Are we playing centre back this season, Lachie?
Now that Rob Harker's gone, I'm not seeing an obvious striker on this list unless I'm missing something. Play the one you've had for a couple of years, who was scoring goals for you regularly and is a great hold-up play striker who, for no reason, and in my opinion, to not a great amount of benefit to the team, played as a 10 last year. Play the striker at striker. That's all I ask.
So Nick makes a great point about how in the past couple of years that they've beaten the teams that are around them, and that's where they've been finished in a decent spot on the table. Everyone around them's really strengthened a lot better than they have. That's where the red flags are for me, because they're weaker than their rivals in that that 5th to about 9th spot on the table. So that's where I can see the slide happening for them. Lachie, you'll be pleased to know that a lot of their home games this season, bar their opening game on Friday night, is on a Saturday at 2:00. It's right up your alley.
That is very much up my
The old Gully time slot. Love it. Well, the Gully comparison is key, though, because they're sort of ostensibly competing with Gully for a spot in the 6, and Gully have had a better off-season than they have, at least on paper. I did laugh when I saw some of the quotes from their signings on social saying they want to win the championship. Everyone wants to win the championship. I'd be more worried about staying in the league than winning it.
I found that concerning as well. Nearly every new signing that they announced was, I've come here to win titles. I've come not just play finals, win the championship. I'll tell you what, I'll give you the hot tip. Hume ain't winning the championship this season.
Yeah,
So
at least that we can say for certain. Josh,
you were talking about comparisons to Gully. So what you're saying is Hume are going to be coming out with one of these this season.
Hey, I think judging by the Hume renter crowds we've had over the past few years for big games, they might need a bigger bus. But let's push on from Hume City. Next cab off the rank is the Oakleigh Cannons, perennial contenders in NPL Victoria under Chris Taylor and with Alex Salmon, Joe Guest, and a fit Joe Knowles again. Is he back?
Yes, he is, yep.
Oh, I mean, we forget about him, but he's one of the best players in the league when he's fit and firing, and when he went down with that serious injury, that derailed their season completely. Nick?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about Oakleigh is they are so good at responding. It feels like after a down year, that the trend has been, since they won the championship in 2022, is to bounce back the following year after a down year and come out and win the league.
And for Oakleigh, a down year is finishing 4th. So
yeah, but
get
look,
that.
Down year, made a semi, in 2023, won in 2024 the whole thing, lost the home elimination final last year, but I think they're going to be bouncing right back up this season. That squad is so strong. Love the Tom Manos signing. You lose Jack Wachowski to Victory, you lose Nick Feely, you lose Matt Dench. You bring in guys like Joseph Ford. Tom Manos is mentioned between the stick. Liston Diaz, I think he's going to be a great signing for them. What he was able to do with Port Melbourne last year when he was fit, he was basically at times, winning games off his own boot for them in the top tier last season. Mark Batheriotis. I'm very excited about Brandon Giaccherini in the top flight this season from GV Suns.
So nice they signed him thrice, Brandon Giaccherini.
I'm more excited about Brandon Giaccherini, who I also saw announced by the Oakleigh.
Well, if Brandon Giaccherini is anything like his namesake Emanuele, then we're in for a great season here in NPL Victoria, and I'm hoping that he can bring the excitement just like the former Sunderland and a midfielder and Italian international in Emanuele Giaccherini. But I think that this team, they've got still such a solid base in and around that squad, and you've still got Joe Guest, you've still got Joe Knowles, you brought in Liston Diaz on one flank, you've got Alex Salmon, hopefully for their sake, back at full throttle up front. They are looking really strong, particularly in the attacking half. They've kept Jordan Hall as well in defence. You've still got Brodie Boyce and Connor Hampson, so a lot of continuity still in that team. So I think in terms of their firepower going forward, they're going to be a very hard team to beat. And I think that there's no reason to think, especially when you see how those other contenders are sort of coming into this year, all the teams that are sort of in that mix, they've all got a little tiny little, like, you know, Heidelberg, long season last year, you know, that might be a bit of a disclaimer, even though we've said we think we're going to finish first. Preston have got the points deduction. They're starting on -6. Avondale have brought in a brand new squad. South Melbourne are juggling Pro League, you know, and played to play championship last year, so South might be having to juggle a bigger squad. Oakleigh have had none of that. They've just had a full off season to get their eggs in the, you know, get their ducks in line ahead of this season and get ready to go for this season. And I think that will serve them really well. You know, it's the beauty of just having one thing to focus on for them and just get ready for the NPL Victoria season. So I expect them to hit the ground running. And if they've got themselves, you know, this squad that looks like it's amazing on paper, I think there's no reason to think that they can't, you know, contend for the premiership this season.
It's a great point you make, and even Chris Taylor's come out publicly in the past week saying that this is the first pre-season that the proper pre-season they've had in a number of years. They had those deep Australia Cup runs that made them start a little bit later. So
they're like a Premier League team that's missed out on Europe and had a terrible season, and then suddenly they've only got their campaign to focus on in the league, and they're fresher than everybody.
Which I think they needed. You know, Alex Salmon was in and out all year with injury, and he still scored a number of goals. He'd probably needed to freshen up. If he's fit and firing, that Guest-Salmon partnership is still probably the best in the competition. And for some reason, Oakley's just flying under the radar. They've been very quiet with their business in the off-season. Only today, when we're recording, they started announcing these signings that we did know of. Listen, Diaz, massive signing. You know, everyone would have been in for him. And
even if he plays, you know, 20% of the available minutes this season, he'll still be kind of a bonus, a plus, because they're not relying on him.
And I see him as a Chris Taylor player as well. Really suits the way Oakleigh plays.
Yeah, because he can come on in the 89th minute and still do something.
Manos is an Oakleigh signing as well, in my opinion. That's, you know, it just fits that club well. You know, he's got his Greek background, and I felt like, you know, Feely's been okay over the past couple of years, but Manos has got that presence that probably that Oakleigh defence needed. And they were a bit shaky last year. They did concede a lot of bizarre goals that we're not used to seeing from them. I think they'll come back with a bang this season, and they'll be right up there as well.
I think the question mark for me is, can Tratt and Hall bring the form they brought at the tail end of the 2024 season when they lifted them to a title, instead of last season where, you know, they were in and out, and, you know, Tratt got that injury, and I just didn't think they were at their sharpest physically. And I remember floating that theory on the pod of maybe A-League players coming down to NPL, and at the start they're ahead of everybody physically because they've been in a full-time professional environment, but once they start getting used to some of the home comforts of playing semi-professional football, it doesn't stick. So I think they've got to go harder again in pre-season and get themselves in tip-top shape so that they can have that edge that we saw. And they were the best central defensive combination in the league in 2024 at the back end there. Can they be that again? Well, Oakleigh could win the championship if they are. And they could win the championship even if they're just playing okay. Like, it's a great squad. And for all the reasons we've said, they've got less competing commitments. The signings don't exactly jump off the page for a lot of people, but Giacarini's really good. I've seen him play VPL too. I know it's a big jump, but he's a Chris Taylor player as well. He's not just a skillful operator and a good attacking threat and a speedy player. He plays hard and physical for his size. He's a small guy, but he absolutely snaps into tackles. He's played under Craig Carley for 2 years.
And CT is very good at that. He always seems to recruit these guys from the lower leagues, the younger boys, and turns them into the player that they should be. You know, that's a kind of like Sir Alex Ferguson style. They never used to sign the A-grade superstar that was there.
That's on the best player in the second division.
Yeah, and then make him into that A-grader. And Oakley's done that time and time again.
Yeah, I think James Georgiou, get ready to watch a lot of football from the bench this season, because CT will give you a year before he really gives you serious minutes. But we've seen Noah Holmes go through that process, and Adam Juratovic as well, who played a bigger role than we anticipated last season. They've lost Asad Kasumovic as well to Adelaide City. He's gone back home to South Australia, but I think they've more than made up for it with some of the recruitment in wide areas. Mark Betheriotis as well, I'm not sure if you've mentioned, but I thought he showed something in his last stint at the top flight at the Knights. You know, I know it was a bad team, but he was all right, and he played at Georgie's in their promotion campaign. So
he should have played more at the Knights, really. Every time he played, he had an impact as well. The only concern is that we saw when Salmon was injured last year that they really struggled. That's the games that they struggled in. And if he can't stay fit, then they could be going through the same thing they went through last season.
Yeah, but potentially 3 blue chippers in Guest, Salmon and Knowles, and that's huge. Let's go to the Preston Lions, the team that's turned heads. And until maybe this time 2 weeks ago, we thought they'd had the best off-season in NPL Victoria history. Unfortunately, congratulations to both of them, but Amir Abdallah, who was set to join the club, had to go and star in AFCON and score a screamer against Senegal and get a professional contract in Q8. But we salute you, Amir. What a player. What a joy he's been to watch in Victoria over the past couple of years.
Did you see his assist on debut for the
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh my God, out of this world. One of the best assists you'll ever see. It's on his Instagram page. Have a look.
In the words of Taufik Olamawewe, let's talk about it. Luca Tevere going to Perth Glory on the eve of the season. Richly deserved. Unfortunately, Preston, the players they signed were too good to stay at Preston. But he gets an A-League opportunity that he really, really deserves. A player with just lung-busting running and awesome technique and can score goals. Like, he's going to be really good in the A-League, I think. So best of luck to him out west. But some of the other signings coming in from Avondale, the backup keeper, Sian Cuba, Aiden Bryce and Zach Chianchi. Aiden Bryce. That is the best back line in the league, I would say. I know we've made a lot of bold, superlative statements on this podcast so far. This is the best 1-2 punch. This is the best midfield. That's the best back line. You got Jamal Ali from Heidelberg coming in at right back. Bryce partnering Matt Bozanovsky, another blue chip central defender, and Stefan Negro, who's played left back at A-League level, can easily move across. Unfortunately, Scott Galloway, who had recurrent calf injuries, has decided to pull the pin before he even stepped on the pitch for Preston, but that is still the best back four in the competition, plus one of the best goalkeepers as well behind them.
Exactly, and I'm going to make an even bolder prediction. So the greatest defensive record in the NPL era was in the first season. 2014 was the first year of the NPL, which was Oakleigh Cannons, 19 goals conceded. Esteban went close a couple of times, got 20 goals conceded.
Are we factoring games played, or has it been the same amount of teams in the league the entire time?
Same amount of teams in the NPL. Preston Lions will break that record, and I think they'll have the greatest defensive record of all time in the NPL. It's the best defense I've seen in the NPL era. That's A graders. We talk about A, B, C, D graders. That every signing that Preston has made is nearly an A grader, if not a B plus. The B plus is a younger players with a lot
George
of
Mihalides,
lot
Danny
of potential.
Bozanovsky.
And apparently Mihalides has been flying in pre-season.
Well, I saw him come on against Preston when he played for Victory, and I was astonished that he hadn't started the game, but also just playing in front of that crowd, no nerves.
Yep.
And that really stood out to me. It was only a 20-minute cameo, but he just looked silky smooth. And he's a really tall midfielder, but with really good technical ability. And I think, in bits and small cameo appearances, he could thrive if he's got that head on his shoulders that he can handle the pressure. In Victory were in a relegation battle, playing in front of a really intimidating atmosphere, and he took to it like a duck to water. So I don't see why he can't be a success.
There is a couple of question marks on this squad. Luca Tavia, losing him just before the season starts is not ideal, and the way Zoran Markovsky plays, he is crucial to the way he plays, especially on that big pitch at BT Connor. I'm sure Preston would bring in someone to replace him before this transfer window closes. I'm certain of that. Who's going to be the number 9? Is it Francis? Is it Jonas Markovsky? Is it Romero? I'm going to go with Jonas Markovsky as he's probably his first option when the season starts. Jonas reminds me of Liam Boland in Zocchi's systems at Avondale, similar type of profile of player. So interesting to see if Zocchi can get the best out of Jonas and get that form back into him. And everyone's going to say the -6. Well, when you look at the -6, okay, use Zoran Markovsky as an example again. Last season, you put -6 to the Avondale team that finished first in the competition. They finished second, 1 point behind Heidelberg. So it's, yes, -6 is psychologically not that great to start the season on, but after 26 games, for a team that's this stacked, it ain't a big deal. They'll still finish in the top 2. This is a team. This is a team that played in a preliminary final, got knocked out against the team that won it, and they have improved massively on that squad. So, you talk about recruiting, you look at their outs, they've improved on every single out that went out of that squad. So it was still a good team. You still got Kublai there. Emil Payos coming back from injury. John Albano. Leighton Brooks still there. This is a heavily stacked team. So I think they'll push all the way and they'll definitely be a title contender.
Well, the Preston Galacticos, some are calling them in our Twitter replies.
Yeah, that's the only question mark. Some of these guys, like Brycey, amazing signing. But, playing for Avondale and playing for Preston are two totally different things. You're playing in front of 50 to 100 people compared to 2,000-3,000 every week. Can some of these guys handle that pressure? I think they can, but proof will be in the pudding when the season gets going.
I think Aiden Bryce is the last player I'd expect to be.
No, I'm just saying, for example, these guys that come in.
I get your point. The outgoings I haven't mentioned yet, but Jackson Nikovsky, Adisu Bayu, Brandon Lawton to Altona, Lucas Trenkowski to the Knights, Giorgio Sodenis to Northcote, Aaron Anderson to Dinamo, Michael Boffey to Bentleigh Greens. A lot of fringe players in here. Lawton was a regular in the promotion campaign, so salute to him. What a contribution he scored in the playoff game, the last day of the season against Langwarrin, to which apparently I yelled Lawton at Lawton Park, and the Preston teammates used to yell at him in training all the time. So a legacy for him to leave at the club. And my sweet prince Connor Bell going to FC Bentleigh Lions. Gone but not forgotten. And
Marcus Schroen as well.
Yes, Marcus Schroen off to Bayside Argonauts, which we mentioned in the last podcast. So a big list of outgoings, but as you say, Preston seems to have upgraded in every position. Did we mention Stefan Zinni on this list? I'm not sure we did. No. He was one of the latest incomings. So, they've got so many options on the wings. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm really excited about watching Preston this season because they were defensively unreal last season. Zoran Markovsky is an extremely attack-minded head coach. So if you can add some attacking firepower and creative thrust to a side that was already defensively incredibly resilient without sacrificing too much of what made them hard to beat, the sky's the limit for this Preston team. Lachie?
Well, Nick, one of you or I has got to stop the Preston love-in with something. Do you want it to be you or do you want it to be I?
I don't know. I didn't think we were going to get a touch of the pill in this segment, but Lachie, I think you go first, mate. Because you missed your Oakland, your Oakleigh mentioned before.
Oh, are we still calling them Oakleigh? I thought they were the Shake to Go Cannons sponsored by Oakleigh. They're sponsors. Bloody big on their shirt these days. Bloody hell. Look, they have cleared out a lot of the detritus of the list, and that is good. And you guys are talking about how they made the preliminary final and rah 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 rah. Okay, yeah, the long-term memory is good. I got a short-term memory. I remember the championship. I remember it pretty well. This team was bad. They were bad, and they
had no players left, Lachie.
Oh, boo-hoo. Yeah, they still had a great. They still had a great team that should have been absolutely walking their way into the knockouts of that competition, and they. I take no joy in saying it because I am very fond of Preston, but they flubbed it, and they flubbed it not playing very good stuff. So that is not to say that they're not better now. They are. That they cannot be good or better this season. I think they will be. But I don't think it can be understated that they are coming from a bit of a low base. And yes, they are markedly improved in certain areas, but in the majority, they are markedly improved in the things they were already good at. They've made a great defense, the third best defense in the league last season, better. How much better have they made the attack? Because Jonas Markovsky could be a striker who scores a lot of goals in this team, but last year he wasn't. Leighton Brooks could be a consistently 27-week a season amazing league-leading winger, but last season I don't think he was. I think he was still very good, don't get me wrong, but I think he tapered off at the back end of last year after a really, really hot start. Jason Romero can be one of the best players in the league. Was he one of the best players in the league consistently last year? He wasn't.
He's pretty good in the championship, apart from that Avondale game.
He was pretty good in the championship. But again, I just there's not as much improvement. And again, I am being forced here to take the dissenting opinion on this team, who I still have in my top 3 and one of the challenges to Heidelberg. But have they improved as much in the area that they actually needed to improve in? Now, maybe the different style, maybe Zoran Markovski's coaching will be the way that they bridge that gap. But I'm going to have to believe that side of things when I see it. But again, I am taking the dissenting view because the rhetoric beforehand has left me no option. And that's my argument. Having said all that, I've still got them in my top 3.
Well, Lachie, it's funny because I've sounded like a Preston fanboy and you've sounded like a dissenter, and we're both going to pick them in the same spot.
You guys, none of you have mentioned the luxury Rolls Royce of the Preston Nick Theodosi car yard that they've got there. They've got a stack of Ferraris, but there's one name in the new signings that none of you guys have mentioned. None of you. And I think he's a sneaky for one of the best signings in the league this season, and a sneaky that we're going to be coming back on and being like, wow, what a signing this was for Preston. Real game changer. Zachary Cianci.
And where did Zach Cianci play his Victorian football last season?
He played for Avondale last year, mate. But before that, he was tearing it up at the Venator Club for Bulleen. He was part of Melbourne City's academy. He was at NWS Spirit as well. Can keep going. This guy, I think, has serious game-changing potential. And I think that people need to start taking more notice of it. He is one of the quicker players in this league, one of the more techie players in this league, and he's going to be a handful for defenders. I genuinely think he is one of the Rolls Royces in Zoran Markovski's garage, and I'm looking forward to seeing him flying up and down the wing this season. You can play him at left wing back, he can play in the front 3. I think this is a guy to really watch this season, and there was a reason why clubs wanted him in the mid-season window. It's a reason why he made the jump from Bulleen to Avondale for the championship and was playing meaningful minutes as well in the championship, and a reason why he's already landed on the radar of Preston as well, and Zoc wanted him in those 4 walls. This guy is a stud, and I'm looking forward to seeing him play at BT Connor Reserve this year.
Well, I'm reliably informed that he and Jamal Ali have already struck up a pretty good partnership on the flank in the pre-season fixtures they've played together. So that's tantalising. And you mentioned, the ability for him to play as like an auxiliary fullback when you're chasing a goal. I mean, Zoran Markovski will do that in a heartbeat. Bring off Stefan Negro, for example, left back, stick Cianci on when you're trailing by a goal at home, and just go all guns blazing or move to a back 3. He'll throw the kitchen sink at a game to chase it, and that's an exciting proposition for when Preston really needs something.
Yeah, let's not forget, no disrespect to Louis Osefsky, who's done a fantastic job with that club for a long time. They've brought in the coach that finished first, 5 points ahead of Johnny A's Heidelberg that everyone rightly so raves on about. So they were a very, very good team that Zoki coached last year, brought the key players across with him to a good team. So, Zoki's home and away form is unbelievable as a coach. So Preston will be banking on that. So that's a huge recruit. It's a different style of play for Preston compared to the way they've been playing, especially on that big pitch. Don't underestimate that style on that big pitch. We've seen when Avondale in the past played cup games at BT Connor Reserve when they used that venue, and they were 10 times more devastating because it's so much more open and suits the way that Markovski likes to play. So to see that week in, week out is going to be interesting.
All right, let's move it along because we are well past the 2-hour mark on this podcast. It's a record-breaking preview even for us. South Melbourne, the great unknowns, the team that had the trials and tribulations, the ups and downs, finished with Australian Championship glory and has gone into the OFC Pro League, which will see, I think, 6 games clash with their hubs. So they're going to have to either roll out the under-23s or send some of the Rezzies to Oceania. And given that they haven't picked up maximum points from their first couple of hubs, I think they're going to have to roll out the first choice 11. So that's going to massively impact their NPL campaign, at least in the regular season. I think still a massive threat come finals. But looking at some of their departures, likes of Jake Marshall going back or going out to WA, Ren Nagamatsu to Brunswick Juventus, Braden Spick to Hume City, Andy Brennan, loyal stalwart to Bayside Argonauts, Cooper Halfpenny, Ross Archibald, Yuzo Iwakami left before the championship as well. In comes Ishvia Singh from Auckland United, Ilya Shalamanov-Trenkov to back up Harvey Lopez, Aaron Cox, James Lachie, Jacob Eliopoulos, Tom Yanakopoulos, Luka Yachida, Luca Coveney, and Seb Pasquale came in for the championship as well. And the big change. So Manny Agwek getting his professional deal in Thailand. And we heard a bit of chatter about that falling through, but I'm not sure.
No, I think he's picked up a contract elsewhere.
Okay.
From what I heard,
all right. So not coming back to, not making a dramatic re-entry to NPL, and Ollie Laval getting his A-League opportunity at Central Coast Mariners. So they're two championship strikers departing the club. The replacement is Geordie Swibble from Marconi, who has played in the A-League and in Canada as well. Didn't tremendously impress me in his time in the championship. He was largely playing second fiddle at Marconi, and I didn't think he looked great. He's been beating up on some Oceania defences in this competition, but I still have question marks over that number 9 spot for Sinisa Kohadzic's team. Lachie, do you want to be first cab off the rank here?
Yeah, I remain optimistic that this team is a finals team, but there is some weirdness, isn't there? Because we are stumbling into the great unknown with how South Melbourne will actually manage these Pro League commitments and how their players will manage effectively not having an off-season as well. Like, for the core of the squad, that is going to be the case, even though they have signed extensively. Uchida, Giannakopoulos, they've come to the club as new signings for this season, but they haven't had an off-season because they played through the NPL. Swibble is another who's in that camp. Swibble will be interesting. The one caveat I would make to a down year for him at Marconi is I'm pretty sure he's coming off a couple of pretty significant injuries that have really hampered him, and he's been on this long journey back to full fitness. And it does augur well that he is starting to score goals in the Pro League. But if I'm being honest, the list of ins beyond what we already knew was there from the championship, which is very good, it's a bit of a hodgepodge. I'm not blown away by their signings as I am some of the other clubs that they'll be contending with, you know? And the centre of defence is a really, really interesting one as well, because the big departure from this effectively core 4 backline for South Melbourne over the last couple of seasons is Jake Marshall, who's gone to WA and left, arguably still in pretty good nick age-wise. And he leaves a pretty significant hole that I'm still not entirely sure South Melbourne have filled with the requisite level of quality that Jake Marshall takes out of the side. So I still think they make finals. I still think they've got the squad to do that. But the level, the scale of the question marks and the amount of them makes it hard to, with any confidence, predict that they'll be a premiership contending team, in my opinion.
Just off of the back of that, Lachie, I agree. I mean, it's a lot falling on Coveney and Eliopoulos this season and Lucas Inglese to fill that hole. Be interesting to see how they do it. Will it be sort of a situation by committee, particularly early in the seasons, they balance Pro League, and especially when they're going to have to travel, going, I think they've still got the 2 hubs in Fiji and the Solomon Islands after the Melbourne hub, and then if they go through that, it's finals. So there's a lot of football they're going to have to contend with in this early stage. And we expect them to get through to the finals of the OFC Pro League, Josh. So I think it's going to go beyond the first 6 rounds of the NPL season, regardless of the fact that they haven't picked up maximum points in the Pro League so far. I think it's pretty safe that they'll be up there with Auckland as the teams that go through. But I think still going forward, that midfield particularly, I think they've been able to keep the bar losing, obviously, Agwek and Ollie Laval, who were really, really good for them in the championship. in different ways, when they went with more of the pressing option or more of the out-and-out number 9. In and around that, for what the philosophy that Sinisa Kahadzic wants to play, they've still got players that are really good at implementing that press. Pasquale and Yiannakopoulos, I think, is a midfield duo, particularly Pasquale, at a lot. You've got Mikola and Bernarda still there as well, which also with their pressing, they are relentless. They are such key players. Bernarda missed a lot of footy in the NPL season last year, and we saw when he got back just how important he was. And I think we'll see if players like Jack Pope and Charlie Leach can also take another step forward this season and really add a little bit in that attacking third. But there are still unknowns around guys like Singh and Cox and James Lachie. Of course, you mentioned Yuki Achita, who I think is an absolute stud. So seeing how those younger guys come along, and there's probably going to be more coming through from the under-23s that we haven't really seen much of, that are probably going to have to shoulder quite a bit of the load early in the season. So it's a big task for Sinisa Kahadzic. It's a big task for South Melbourne. I think the key will just be stay in the hunt. Stay in the hunt early in the season and back yourself as the year goes on to get in. And, essentially once you get to finals, back yourself that you can go all the way. And once you're in there, you've got a ticket to the raffle. Why can't you win it? So I think they're going to be a finals team this year. I think that it's going to be a bit of a hill for them to climb early doors if they're going to have to constantly be rotating and managing their minutes. But I think as the year goes on, they'll get better.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. I think they'll manage this whole 26 round season just to get into the finals. They'll be under no illusion. They're not going for top spot. Their priority will be that OFC Pro League, simply for the fact that the prize money to win that OFC Pro League is $250,000 compared to $20,000 to win the NPL. So where are you going to put all your eggs in? You're going to put it in that OFC Pro League. This is the club that won the championship. Are they as strong as the team that won the championship? No, because they lost their 2 attacking threats in Agwek and Laval. But they're still a very good squad. Yuki Yoshida, that's a huge signing.
He was absolutely awesome in the championship as well.
Yeah, and he's been doing very well in the Pro League. But it's not just the actual games that clash with the hub. They just came out of the Vanuatu hub. They haven't flown back till today, Tuesday, when we're recording.
Port Moresby hub they've been in.
Wherever.
PNG.
PNG. They've just come back today, and they're playing on Saturday. So, how are they going to manage that? If they flew back on Sunday, there's a couple extra days to recover. And the games in particular on the weekend that they played, that was stifling conditions that they played in. And a lot of the key players played in that game, so you can't see many of them backing it up on Saturday against Avondale. So that's another...
Especially the way that Sinisa likes to play with the high press.
And to be honest, they looked wrecked. They look tired already. And when the Pro League finishes, they're going to need it. Like those key personnel that play a majority of those games, they're going to need a rest. They can't surely just go, we're playing NPL now. They're not made to play that many games. So injuries are going to be a concern, especially, when we get to winter. That's going to be the concern for them. But I think there's still a lot of talent in that squad, and they'll juggle it just to, be in that top 6, and then come finals time, they'll give it a real crack.
Yeah, I mean, no one doubts the quality of South when it comes to finals, but can they get to the finals is the question with this crazy fixture list that they've got.
That's the great unknown. We actually don't know. I'm just guessing that they'll manage it.
This is totally unprecedented.
Yeah.
And this is what makes it such a hard season to predict for South Melbourne, because no one's done this before. This is a new competition. No one knows what the burden is going to be like. We have to remember that some of the games are in the Melbourne hub that's coming up, so there won't be the travel involved, but they're still going to be clashing fixtures. So it's tough, but they've got a great team. They've just lifted the national trophy. Can they avoid burnout is the big question around South Melbourne. I don't think any of us is a qualified strength and conditioning coach and can't really answer that.
Definitely not.
Let's push on to St Albans Dinamo. I'll let Nick talk through the incomings and outgoings over at Churchill Reserve, because a couple of exciting names through the door, Nick.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm pumped about what they're building out there at St Albans. Some really, really handy signings. Obviously, some big losses. I mean, losing Oliver Dragicevic, who was so good for them last season.
Incredible pronunciation there, Nick.
Yeah, thank you,
10
Mark.
out of 10.
I appreciate
Well
that.
done.
That's the sign off that I needed right there. Gideon Arock, as we mentioned, obviously went to Malta, one team sort of removed now. Sean Rosvidzo, who we spoke about, not at Bentleigh anymore, parts unknown for him. Michael Gergic, who's been a long time servant at the club, going down to Whittlesea United. Lucas Burns to Georgies. Jackson Rowley to Lions FC. Nick Ansell going to State League 3 with Doncaster Rovers. So from professional football to NPL football to State League 3 football. And my boy Joshy Diven at Melbourne Knights next season. But some really nice ins at St Albans. Lloyd Isgrove particularly, I think, is an awesome signing for them. Atsushi Inouye, I think I'm saying Inoue.
I think it's Inoue.
Inoue coming in from Portugal. From all reports, a really tidy signing. Anthony Laban, I think, is going to be a good pickup for them too. Aaron Anderson, Marco Juric and Christian Rossi between the sticks. And they've been able to keep a lot of those same players that were really strong for them last season. Mickey Platt, I think, a player that I think is going to have a big year this year. Joseph Cholina sticking around, they're now having an off-season with Lachie Weir in there. Emmanuel Peters is on the recovery trail. From what I understand, he will be back this season, which is a big in for St Albans, because remember early in the season last year, before he did his Achilles, just how good he was. And St Albans lost a lot when he got injured last season. So good to get him back in the team. Still got Joshi Golevsky as well there too. So they've been able to retain a lot of that team. And now Cam Watson gets what is ostensibly year 2 of his project. He had the half season. He's had the full first season, but now he gets the second season. And I think it's interesting that they haven't gone with, the big sort of ins and outs. They've retained a lot of that core. And we spoke about it a lot last season. They were in basically every single game that they played early in the year before that they couldn't, mathematically play finals and all of that in those last couple of games of the season. They were always in games. They had this tendency to get points against teams that really, you tip them to lose against and drop points against the teams that really they should have gotten points against. And I think that's going to be a real test for them. Can they this year make that next step? Because on paper, they've got the talent enough to compete with your Dandy Cities, compete with your Green Gullies, Dandy Thunders, Bentleigh, they're in Hume, they're in that group, but they have the talent on paper to take that leap and make finals football next season. But I think the big thing for them is, can they beat those teams in around them this year? Can they just, stack up the points against them, because they are so good at playing against the best teams in this league. They have this uncanny knack of knocking off a lot of the heavy hitters, but can they beat those sides in that mid-table push? And I think with someone like Isgrove coming in to complement Mickey Platt, getting the band back together up front will really help them. And I think as well, once they get Manny Peters as well, it's really going to help them too. So I think that they're going to be thereabouts in the push for finals. I'm a big believer in what they're building out there. Mark, I know we spoke about the doubleheader at Churchill Reserve next week, but I think definitely, regardless for them, it's going to be a great occasion, at least for St Albans, to showcase, what they've got out there at Churchill Reserve. It's a big game against Dandy City to kick off the year, and if they can start the year on a high note by getting 3 points at home against a team that, look, they would say that they would look at Dandy City and say they're not that far off them. They'd look at that and be like, why can't we be the Dandy City of 2026 and be a team that gets into finals and tests themselves against some of the better teams in this comp?
All that stuff I said about Kieran Bramwell and about how it's more important to get in scoring positions than actually be a clinical finisher? I'd like to completely contradict myself and say you're not going to win a World Cup with Emil Heskey and you're not going to go on a finals run with Mikael Platt.
Come on, mate. It's Mickey Platt we're talking about, my man. Where's the respect?
Your golden boot prediction from a couple of seasons ago, let's not forget. I don't see it. Look, I just don't think they've upgraded enough in the positions they needed to, considering they lost Dragicevic, who's unbelievable. Joe Cholina was awesome last season, so I think he could take his game to another level. But Isgrove is sort of a straight replacement for Burns. I think he's an upgrade, but we'll see how much. He wasn't that consistent last season.
Isgrove is a Dinamo signing. I don't know, his personality from what I've seen, he just suits that club and the club will embrace him, and I think he'll actually have a good run there because I think he'll enjoy his football at St Albans.
Because he's at a club where he doesn't have to perform every week.
Wow, come on.
That's what you meant.
Don't forget,
what did you mean by that?
No, just the environment of the club, the fans, the way they interact with their players and stuff.
Okay, all right.
They'll embrace him massively. Don't forget Cam Watson.
I thought that was a little elbow from a Melbourne Knights fan.
No. That was a tick. That was actually a positive.
All right. Thank you for clarifying.
And Cam was the one that brought him to Australia as well.
They have a good relationship, so it was natural for him to go.
And I have watched St Albans in the preseason friendly, and I saw how do you say his name? Atsushi Inoue. Unbelievable. Absolute gun. He plays more as a holding midfielder from what I saw, but very, very good. So he's definitely not a direct replacement for Drgicevic, and that is a big loss. You know, Ollie did start the season slowly, but when he came alive, St Albans came alive and went on a good run. Ansell is also a big loss as well. I've got question marks on St Albans' defence. I can see what's going to happen with St Albans this season. They'll do okay at the start. They'll fall away for a bit. They'll be teetering around the relegation zone, and then some random ex-Melbourne Victory defender will come in the transfer window. They'll win 6 games in a row, and they'll be safe for another year.
Congratulations, St Albans. It's the most stylish 9th-placed finish we've ever seen.
Can I just add to the point about Drgicevic? Like, that is so hard to replace. Like, where are you going to find another player like that just...
from Japan, from the sound of
same
things.
place they found Drgicevic in their under 20s.
But I know, but like he's an exceptional talent. Like replacing him is really, really hard. So I think all things considered, Mark, I mean, you're talking big things about the new signing. I mean, if he's as good as what you say he is, this could be a really handy pickup, and it could just be by committee. I mean, the other player that I've heard good things about is Nick Cook, another attacker who was really solid in Western United's academy team a couple of years ago, came mid-season last year. I think he's going to be someone to really keep an eye on. And the other player I forgot to mention they've brought in is Michael Martinovic, who's come in from Bentleigh Greens as a nice handy in at fullback, where I think they were always chopping and changing a bit at fullback last year, just trying to find the right mix of players. Maybe now having a little bit more solidity there with him and Lachie Weir, they can finally get Joey Monek to play as part of that front three as well, where he does his best work. And suddenly you're starting to get the cogs turning. And another one, sorry to keep on harping on, Jerome Sharan's another young player as well, who last year looked really solid, Lachie.
He was. I think... I see what you mean, Josh, and I'm kind of leaning similarly aligned to what you say. I think if you look at the squad from this year to last year, they come out just ahead. So I've got them a little bit further up in the table, maybe at best pushing for finals, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to be that generous. Eastgrove could be primed for a return to form. I think he was still good last year, but did have a bit of a down season in terms of his numbers from what admittedly was a very high bar he set in season 1. But it can't be forgotten that Cam Watson was the man who unlocked that. And the natural question is, which overaged Melbourne Victory player will St Albans be signing in the mid-season window as the SOS option? Well, step aside Mark Ivkovic, because I've already got the exclusive on which player will be joining St Albans in January. Just taking a look at the age profile of the Melbourne Victory players on Wikipedia, I would like to issue a warm welcome to St Albans Dinamo for a man who I'm pretty sure I have heard through alternative sources lives in the West. Welcome to Fox Street, Adama Traore. Looking forward to seeing what you can do in the heart of the Victory defence next season.
I reckon it's going to be Matt Spiranovic that's going to come down in June and save the day for him.
Out of retirement.
Yep.
I did once ask him if he wanted to play NPL, and he said not in a million years. So, alas. All right, last cab off the rank. Melbourne City, newly promoted after their dramatic playoff final win against Brunswick City on penalties. Big departures in Marcus Humbert, Alessandro Diamanti, so a new head coach in... Is it Stuart McDonald? Is that his name, Lachie?
Sure is.
Yes, nods from the A-League social media man. So I'm not going to go through a list of incomings and outgoings because it's an academy side. But let's say we got some of the academy side experience with Melbourne Victory last season. I think we kind of know how it's going to go. Nick?
Well, I really like, the fascinating thing I think early in the year, and Lachie, I'd be fascinated for your thoughts as well on this, but City obviously have got their A-League men's team are juggling ACL at the moment, and they're early in the year going to be playing games off short turnarounds and got a few short turnarounds in the A-League season and rely a lot on a lot of those younger guys coming into the senior team. But I guess now the beauty is for them that they've made all those raft of signings in January, bringing in guys like Ryan Teague and Marcus Eunice and Arzani and Delbridge, that maybe now we might see some of those guys that were getting A-League experience come down and play in the NPL early in the season, which will make Melbourne City actually a really interesting team to watch. Beckham Baker played a big part in their promotion last season. He's had a bit of A-League experience. Expect to see a bit of him. Besyan Kutleshi, Kavian Rahmani, he's injured at the moment, but he's someone who might get into the team at some point unless he's just now a permanent resident in the senior team. Benny Mazzeo, Lachie Charles. Lachie, I know we've got a lot of stocks in Lachie Charles, Lawrence Wong, Akeem Gerald. They've got a lot of talent in this team. And then you think about that next wave coming through. I mean, this is arguably one of, if not the best, academy setups here in Australia for what they've been able to produce over the last 10 or so years since CFG have come in. So I think they're going to be a bit of fun to watch. I think early in the year, when they've got more of the complement of scholarship players available to play for them, I think they're going to be a real thorn in the side of a lot of teams. So they're going to play football as well. So they're going to be fun to watch. Talking about League Pass teams, these guys are going to be right up there. And a lot of them have had now a bit of experience playing A-League men's football, which I think will suit them coming back to the NPL system, and perhaps more A-League experience on the park than what, say, Melbourne Victory had last year, playing week in, week out, particularly early in the year. I know they had, Jing Reese playing quite a bit of football early in the season, and Luca College and such. Luca College unfortunately didn't make an A-League debut, but nonetheless, I think that they've got a really solid squad. But again, it's hard. It's really hard to see how they're going to be able to sustain it for 26 games against, tougher senior season bodies. So I think they're going to be thereabouts in that relegation battle. But I think I could see them, if they can stay up this season, it'd be a tremendous achievement. Yeah,
I don't see them staying up necessarily, but I'm excited to see what the talent is like. And I think it could be a real proving ground for some guys who are going on to tear up trees at the professional level. But it's going to be bloody hilarious to see Bruno Fortaroli getting marked by a player half his age as he plays against his former A-League club.
I think that Melbourne City, in terms of their youth talents, I think are a better team than Victory in terms of the youth players they've got in reserve. I still don't think that that's enough to stay up in this league. That's my personal feeling. I just don't think an academy team is ready to survive. And as far as I can recall, I'm happy to be corrected on this, but I don't think an A-League academy team, granted, the instances have been rare, have survived ever a season. They have gone up and they've gone straight back down. And I think, unfortunately, the good thing about the richness of Melbourne City's youth reserves, I think, is also going to count against them here, because the amount of players that are young, that are talented, that, as Nick said, are being relied upon in that A-League men's squad, that are 17, 18, 19, who would be your older players in an NPL squad, means we could be going into potentially an NPL season where Melbourne City are on the regular, as they did in many instances in VPL1 last year, playing 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds regularly in their starting 11. Like, I'm not saying that's a certainty, but it is a possibility, and I have a feeling that in the NPL, that will count massively against them. I think they'll put up more of a fight than Melbourne Victory, but I can't see them staying up.
All right, without further ado, gentlemen, let's put our money where our mouth is and go through our 2026 ladder predictions. Let's start with your top 6 from 6th through to 1st. I will start with you, Ivka.
6th place, I've got Dandenong City. I think they've got enough to make another finals run. 5th place, Green Gully. 4th, South Melbourne. 3rd, Oakleigh. 2nd, Preston. And 1st, Heidelberg.
Interesting. All right, I'll counter with mine. You've got... who's missing out of that? Avondale missing the finals.
Yep.
I've got South Melbourne in 6th, due to their OFC commitments alone. They're a great team, but they're just going to be gassed. And I think they'll do just enough, probably intentionally so, just enough to make the 6th and nothing more, so that they can give their players a rest at the back end of the season heading into finals. That's my prediction. 5th, I've got Green Gully, same as you. 4th, Avondale. I actually think they're fine. They're not going to win the championship, but they're not going to fall out of the finals. I've come full circle on them. I was like, oh, they're going to finish 8th, 9th. And then I look at their actual squad on paper. I'm like, it's pretty good. They're going to be fine. Jonathan Germanos hopefully learned some lessons from the championship. And those 2 Japanese boys they signed from Melbourne City are awesome footballers. So I think they're going to be good. 3rd, I couldn't go any higher than 3rd with Preston as much as, my heart wanted to.
You lower those expectations, Josh.
No, I'm not lowering expectations. 3rd would be huge for Preston. They've got a -6 points deduction. If they didn't have the points deduction, I'd pick them 2nd. But they're -6, and that's a lot when you're talking about a tight race for the top 2. I think Oakleigh in 2nd. They're just a stable club with continuity in their core players and a few good signings for the supporting cast. And Joe Knowles being fit again is massive. And then Heidelberg is my, I think, probably consensus number 1 pick. Can I go to Lachie?
Yes, and I'm going to deliberately contravene your rules to include 7th so that I can say it. Green Gully in 7th. They will narrowly miss out on the finals. I'm sorry, but you've just let me down too many times. My faith is extinguished. Dandenong City in 6th. I've gone similar to Josh actually here. I think I've got the same top 5. No, Josh, you had South Melbourne in 6th. I've got them in 5th. Avondale have leaped into the top 4. Preston, Oakleigh in 2nd, and I think it will be very close, actually, but Heidelberg will be in 1st.
Nick? Don't tell me you haven't decided.
I have and ahed from 6th through to 12th for a very long time tonight. As I've been crunching numbers, I've been trying to crunch my ladder. So I'm going to give you 1st to 5th first. Heidelberg in 1st. I'm going to have Oakleigh in 2nd. Preston 3rd. Avondale 4th. South 5th. And in 6th spot on goal difference, Dandy City just ahead of
I thought you were going to say Dinamo.
I initially had them in. I initially had them in, but I think it's a coin flip between the 2 of them. And I think Gully and Dandy Thunder are just going to finish below them. So that's my pick, but I think it's going to be a matter of a few. I think we're going to get a really fun race to 6th this season. I think you almost throw a blanket over about 3 or 4 teams.
All right, next up, your mid-table mediocrity, 7th through 10th. I'm going to go Dandy City just missing out in 7th. Dandy Thunder 8th. St Albans Dinamo 9th, as they should be. And Bentleigh Greens in 10th. Nick, you can go next.
Yeah, as mentioned, Dandy City in 7th. Oh, sorry, Dandy City. St Albans in 7th for me. In 8th place, Green Gully. In 9th, Dandy Thunder. And in 10th, Bentleigh Greens.
Lachie?
Well, for the people at the back, in case they didn't hear it, 7th, Green Gully. 8th, Bentleigh Greens. 9, St Albans Saints Dinamo. And 10, Dandenong Thunder.
I think these are all almost variations of the same teams, but
except me, because I've got Avondale in 7th place.
That's the big call.
Bentleigh 8th, St Albans 9th, Dandy Thunder 10th.
And your bottom 4. So who just survives? Who goes down? Lachie, first cab off the rank here.
I have Altona Magic in 11th. The Loza Faith points are doing the business. And then my relegated 3, Melbourne City, Caroline Springs, George Cross, and Hume.
Any particular order?
Yes, City bottom, Caroline Springs, George Cross 13th, Hume City 12th.
Nick.
I'm going to say Hume survived just. I reckon they have a late season push. Altona, I think Georgie's unfortunately go down, but they'll be like the Manningham of 2024.
It's a great comp, actually.
Go down. Yeah, they will go down swinging and they'll go down in a flurry. But then again, though, if there is any team to come out in the mid-season window and make the Dandy City-esque 2019 signings of the Adrian Layers and Brenton Santalabs, it's Caroline Springs, George Cross to come in and just be like, let's get a couple big names in and let's keep ourselves up. So
Michael Mifsud, welcome to the NPL Victoria.
And then Melbourne City bottom.
All right. Ivka?
Yeah, I've got Hume just surviving as well. And then the same, George Cross, Altona Magic and Melbourne City to go down.
Pretty much the same. I've got Altona bringing up the rear. Melbourne City second last. Georgie's just getting relegated behind Hume City. Gentlemen, just to finish us off, your Golden Boot winner, please, Ivka.
Alex Salmon for me.
Nick?
Bruno Fornaroli.
Lachie?
I got joint winners.
Oh, come on.
Bruno Fornaroli and Kieran Bramwell.
I'm going to have Bruno Fornaroli as well. Your gold medalist, Nick.
Oh, see, I've got joint winners. Interestingly enough, I've got a 3-way tie.
Oh, God, 3-way tie.
I've got.
By the way, we're tallying these as extra points in our tipping at the end of the year, and you don't get anything if you pick a 3-way tie.
A 3-way tie between Joe Guest, Marcus Humbert, and the Green Gully Soccer Supporter Bus comes in at number 3. No. I reckon, Joe Guest and Marcus Humbert a tie. I'm going for the big one.
Lachie?
Those were my 2. I think Guest wins it outright. Hat-trick, baby.
I think Anthony Lesiotis will take out the gold medal.
I think you fools for picking Heidelberg players because they all take points off each other. But there is one man who will be even more unshackled than he was under Johnny A this season, playing under Zoran Markovski, bombing forward from fullback. Jamal Ali gets the gold medal, baby. And that wraps up our 2026 NPL Victoria season preview. It's our longest episode ever, so we hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for tuning in if you've made it this far. You are a true NPL sicko like the 4 of us. Thank you, Lachie Flanagan, Nick Debano, and Mark Ivkovic. And good night.
Yeah, everyone, if you got this far, just enjoy it one more time.